Before we start, the name is at the top of the screen. She was just 15 years old, left with little more than a few pieces of clothing in her precious spider and needle. She sits by the small window with the unfinished dress in her lap. The fabric gathers over her knees. The needle moves in and out without pause. Her fingers are stiff. The skin at the tips is cracked from too many pricks. Sometimes she wondered why she had been born into this household. The thought came and went quickly. There was no point thinking about it. Her eyes looked dull and tired. The door opened and a man walked in. "Why is this still not done?" he demanded. She froze, needle still between her fingers. He never expected a daughter of his to become this much of a dimwit. She didn't respond. Is she even listening? He snapped. He threatened that she will finish this dress today. Or else she shouldn't expect a scrape of food until it's done. Evie looked down at her hands. The tips of her fingers were red and sore. She linked them together and breathed into them, trying to ease the sting. Her shoulders were stiff, but she stayed in the small wooden chair. Her name is Evie. Evie Nil. She was the eldest daughter of the Nile family, but she remembered another name. Tasamunji. In her previous life, she had been born and raised in Japan. She had lived an ordinary life, gone to school, walked familiar streets, until she was 18. The accident had happened too fast for her to fully understand it. As both the pain and her consciousness began to fade away, she figured it was the end of her story. But when she opened her eyes again, she was in an unfamiliar place. She found herself staring at a ceiling she did not recognize. The furniture looked like it came from the Middle Ages of Europe. She had only ever seen things like them on TV before. Her vision shifted downward. Small hands. She stared at them, her mind refusing to connect what she was seeing. Why were her hands so small? Had the shock of the accident done something to her mind? Had she somehow reverted to being a child? None of it made sense. Her eyes darted around the room. Then something else moved in her line of sight. Small figures hovered in the air nearby. Winged. Glowing faintly. Their forms were delicate and unreal. She froze. What were these creatures she was seeing? And then she screamed. It came out as the helpless cry of an infant. Two maids showed up. "She's crying again," one of them said with clear annoyance. The other replied, "It's such a hassle, babies are always like this." Thankfully it didn't matter much, even if they only look after her half-heartedly. It's not like her parents have any interest in her anyway. She finally realized she was definitely not in Japan anymore. Rather, she had been reborn as a baby in another world. Several years later, she has grown more accustomed to this world, and in doing so, she has come to understand three things. First and foremost, these small creatures are called spirits. She has only ever seen three who reside within this house. They look so pitiful with their worn-out clothing. She gently plays with one of them and decides she will fix him right up. As for what she has learned, something akin to the magic she only heard of in fantasy novels exists in this world. She uses her magic, gathering it, and then spins it to a fine thread. She discovered this not long after she was born. It was an ability which she could manipulate freely, though she can only use it to sweet simple things. As she sweets the spirit's dress, his eyes tear up. Since she was a child, she has been making clothes for the spirits with this ability. She looks a little startled, closing one eye when he suddenly kisses her temple in an exaggerated way. Then he starts swaying around the room in pure happiness. She watches him for a moment. A small smile forms on her lips. They always seem so pleased with her work. Her little sister stands there, half inside the doorway. Two neat ponytails tied with beautiful bows frame her face. She clutches a stuffed toy tightly. The little girl asks what is she doing here all by herself. Yui looks at her and whispers Melia. There was one more thing she had come to understand. A great many people in this world can see neither spirits nor magical energy. One of them is her little sister who was born just a year after her. The Niles, a family of so-called artisan nobles, are known for the quality clothing they produce for the royal family. It is said that the family's craftsmanship comes from a mysterious power which they have been using for generations. Now that she thinks about it, the power that she possesses must have come from her ancestors. Her little sister beams at her and asks if she can come and play with her after she's done studying. She smiles back and replies, "Sure." Evie is still unfamiliar with this world. Even so, since she has been reincarnated, she thinks she would like to live her life to the fullest here. But years later, on her 10th birthday, everything came crashing down. On her 10th birthday, her parents came to her and said they were going to celebrate it. She looked at them, confused and a little uneasy. From the moment she was born, her parents had never shown much concern for her, which is why something like a party seemed so strange to her. Her father told her to come to him. He said he had prepared a very special present. He presented a small spider. She blinked, startled. Next to it was a needle. A spider and a needle? She thought. Her father said the spider would spin thread. He told her it had been the Nile family's contracted sacred beast for generations. His voice was serious, almost proud. Then he handed her a piece of cloth. With that spider and that needle, he told her, she needed to show him she could perform divine protection embroidery. Her eyes widened slightly. She had never even heard those words before. Divine protection embroidery is the art of imbuing magical energy into the spider's thread, which is then embroidered into the fabric to grant it protection. This protection allows the cloth to withstand even the slash of a sword. That is the unique embroidery down the Nile family, but at the same time no one had ever taught her the technique. When she remains quiet, he asks what is the matter. As someone who has inherited the blood of the Nile family, she should be able to do it. She understands that, does she not? She says nothing. He hands over the cloth to her hands and tells her to do it now. She walks to the chair and sits down. She picks up the needle. Her mother stands nearby with the staff. They watch in complete silence. Her father's gaze stays fixed on her, sharp and unblinking. Whispers slowly fill the room. They comment that she is amazingly fast. Her stitching is beautiful. They wonder if this is not the first time she has ever touched a needle. They say she is talented. After all, what else would one expect from the daughter of the Nile family? She continues sewing. Then, without warning, her father raises his hand and slaps her across the face. The impact is so hard that she topples out of the chair and hits the floor. A red handprint forms on her cheek. She looks up, stunned. He suddenly screams at her, calling her a useless girl. He demands to know why she is showing him such commonplace embroidery. He reminds her that he told her to perform divine protection embroidery. Is she telling him she cannot do it? Still sitting on the floor, dazed, she blurts out that she does not know how. He shouts that she will have no excuses. She has brought shame to their family name. She is an absolute failure. Their blood relatives can do it without being taught, so what does she mean she does not know? Is she really saying she cannot perform divine protection embroidery? He mutters that he cannot believe this. Then he turns his back on her and mutters he is disappointed. The party is cancelled. He will return to his room. Her mother calmly pulls her younger sister to her side and says they should leave as well. But her sister looks worried and asks what about her. Their father snaps that a daughter of the Nile family who cannot even perform divine protection embroidery is no daughter of his. From this day on, she will live a life more suited for her. And just as he said, her life became a living hell after that. After that day, he demands that she perform divine protection embroidery. If she cannot manage that, then she will make herself useful by sewing clothes instead. That is all she is good for, he says. She is shut away in a dark workroom. The windows are small, barely letting in light. From dawn to dusk, she sews. There is no rest, no pause. If she refuses or slows down, she is fed only scraps. The maids do not treat her kindly. They mock her, push her, sometimes, accidentally, knock over her materials. 1 year later, on her sister's birthday, she has already learned how to perform divine protection embroidery. For a moment, their eyes meet. Her sister's smile fades. She quietly murmurs that she will not become like her. Unlike her, her little sister was able to perform divine protection embroidery perfectly by her 10th birthday and her situation worsened. 5 years later, her father stands over her, glaring down before he slaps her across the face. She falls to the floor. He kicks her in the ribs, and then grabs her by the hair and yanks her head up. Her sister watches from the doorway. There is a small smile on her face. Her father throws a plate of old food onto the floor in front of her. It scatters near her knees. She only stares at it with dull eyes. Later, she sits back at her work. Her hair seems unwashed, hanging unevenly around her face. Her eyes look exhausted. The needle keeps moving. She is so hungry. But if she wants proper food, she may have to work through the night again. In her past world, she could have run away from home. Running away here would only result in her dying a dog's death by the side of the road. How much longer does she have to live like this? Does she have to keep living like this? There is a knock on the door. She tiredly looks up. A man steps inside and apologizes for startling her. So she is Yui Nil. He then asks if she would come along with him. She watches him closely. Why is someone like him in a place like this? His clothes look refined. Noble. She quietly asks who he is. He apologizes for the lack of manners. He introduces himself as Rodan Calasithla. From today onward, he will be her employer. The Lord is a noble and civil servant in the king's service. His exceptional abilities were recognized at a young age, and within a single generation, he moved up the ranks from being a second-class noble to his current standing, a man of excellence, and more than anything, with those blue eyes and hair the color of golden wheat, a man handsome enough to be a model, desired by a countless number of women throughout this country. To think that such a day would arrive when a man like him would hire her. On the way there, she sits stiffly in the carriage, hands folded in her lap. She does not speak. He looks out the window for a while, then tells her to look outside. She hesitates, then turns her head. A huge mansion stands before them, tall and imposing. When they step out, a butler is already waiting. He bows politely. He leans slightly toward the butler and quietly asks if anything unusual has happened while he was away. The butler replies that nothing has. He nods and tells him to show her to her room. The butler's eyes shift to her. He studies her for a moment and then says, "So she is that one girl." She stands there, stiffened. Rodan places a hand on her shoulder and gently pulls her a little closer to him and says that is right. He introduces her and announces starting today, she will be working at the mansion as a seamstress. He tells the butler that when he first laid eyes on one of her works, he was struck by how beautiful and delicate her technique was. Because of that, he negotiated to have her work here instead. He admits he was surprised to learn that she was not born with the ability to use divine protection embroidery. Still, that does not matter. His gaze lowers to her hands. Her fingers are thin and marked with old wounds. The spider sits quietly on her shoulder. He kneels down in front of her. He asks she has gone through many hardships, has she not? She does not answer. He tells her she can rest easy now. As long as she lives here, she will never have to suffer the way she did before. He will make sure of it. He will do whatever it takes so she can focus only on her work as a seamstress. For the first time, her eyes widen slightly. There is a faint flicker inside them. He ruffles her hair lightly and says that if anything happens, she should call for him. Then he takes her by the hand and says that first, they need to get her bathed, changed into proper clothes, and fed. He orders the butler to prepare everything immediately. Later, as smiling maids wash her gently and bring clean clothes and warm food, she realizes something. It feels as if she has left hell behind, and stepped into heaven. On the day of her departure, her parents did not even come to see her off. They were too absorbed in counting all the compensation money Lord Rodan had given them. She was so worthless to the family that they could care less about where she would end up. At the mansion, things feel different. The head chef and the head maid stand there as food is placed in front of her. They urge her to eat properly. The head chef proudly says this is a home created by him, and she must try everything. She picks up her utensils quietly and takes a small bite. The head chef leans closer, watching her face carefully, waiting for her reaction. She says it is very good. His expression immediately brightens. He tells her to eat more and grow big and strong. Right now she does not even look 15. He reaches out and ruffles her hair. Then his tone changes slightly. He admits that at first, they were all against her coming to the mansion. In their eyes, the Nile family is nothing but a group of unpleasant people who resent Lord Rodan for achieving success at such a young age. He wipes at his eyes suddenly. But the moment he saw her, he couldn't stand it. She looked like she might wither away at any second. He felt an urge to do something for her, anything at all. If there is ever something she needs, he tells her, she should just say so. She thanks him softly. She realizes everyone here is so friendly. In all her 15 years of living in this world, this is the first time that she has been treated so kindly. Her hands slowly clench into fists. She looks up and says she wants to give her all as a seamstress in this home. The head maid and the head chef stare at her for a moment, surprised. Then they both smile. From that day on, her life changed completely. Aside from her side room, she was also given a separate tidy room of her own. She has a proper day off once a week and receives her wages once a month. When she receives her wages for the first time, the staff gather around her. They congratulate her warmly. They tell her that before this, she might never have been paid properly for her work, but now things are different. Now she can buy whatever she wants with her own money. Her face lights up at those words. Buy whatever she wants. She quickly turns to the maid beside her and says she has a favor to ask. The maid is helping her carry folded clothes. She thanks the maid for the help. The maid says it is nothing, just a small task. Then the maid asks how she plans to spend her first paycheck. Is she going to buy clothes? Fabric? Something special? What is she thinking of making? She grows quiet for a moment. Then she murmurs it is still a secret. The maid says that in that case, she had better show her once she is done. She gently ruffles her hair and reminds her not to overdo it. After the maid leaves, the room becomes quiet. Her mind drifts back to those 5 years of torment. The days without proper meals. The lack of conversation. Her body gradually weakened and it became difficult for her to put her thoughts into words. Now, she wants to give something back. She wants to make sachets for them. She has already prepared the cloth, the ribbons, and a small pot for refilling the fragrance. Everything is ready. She turns and picks up her spider. She asks softly if it will help her. Although it is her first time attempting it willingly, she decides she will try divine protection embroidery. The spider immediately begins to produce thread. It flows and swirls lightly around her hands. She focuses and tries to guide the thread with her magic. Suddenly, she flinches. Her eyes widen. Large amounts of spirits appear before her. There are countless of them, gathering in the air around her. For a moment, she is stunned. Then the spirits begin to move, surrounding the thread, gently assisting as she works. She realizes they are helping her. Her expression slowly brightens. Items endowed with the spirit's power can offer the holder's mind and body protection. Without these spirits by her side, she would have never been able to continue on living in those circumstances in the Nile house. If they continue like this, the sachets will be magnificent. When Lord Roden returns from the capital, the butler is already waiting in the entrance hall. He bows as usual, but there is a slight stiffness in his posture. He informs Lord Roden that although he has only just arrived, there is a matter that requires discussion. Lord Roden studies him briefly. It is rare for the butler to appear hurried. He asks what it is. The butler steps forward and presents a tray. A small embroidered pouch rests at its center. He explains that it is a sachet, a gift Miss Evie distributes to the mansion staff. Lord Roden picks it up. A soft, refined fragrance rises from it. He remarks that the scent is pleasant and asks what concern it poses. The butler replies that the materials are gathered and prepared by Evie personally. The sachets are handed out as simple gifts. That alone is not the issue. He then requests that Lord Roden examine the lining. Lord Roden turns the pouch inside out. His movement slows. His gaze widens. The stitching concealed within the seam is impossibly intricate, layered with deliberate precision. A brief silence follows before he states that it is divine protection embroidery. The butler confirms it. Moreover, it does not appear to be an ordinary variation. He adds that the power of spirits dwells within the threads themselves. Lord Roden studies the pattern more closely. It matches the recorded descriptions. The butler admits it is identical to the work attributed to the founder of the Nile family. The true divine protection embroidery. Power spirits dread her divine protection embroidery. This is identical to the work of the founder, the true divine protection embroidery. Roden looks shocked and blurts that he hasn't seen anything like this in a long while. Isn't a product like this of national treasure, caliber? His unease deepens as he asks, wasn't she supposed to have the divine protection embroidery? The butler replies, he believes the suffering she had endured at her previous home may have caused her to keep her ability to perform divine protection embroidery hidden, therefore to make sure it wouldn't be noticeable, she sewed it into lining. It could be likely that she's unaware of her divine protection embroidery being on par with the founders. Roden looks surprised, asking doesn't she recognize the true value of her divine protection embroidery? He thinks so, it is true. Given how long she had been mistreated, she may not have had the opportunity to speak with others about it. There's even a possibility she may not have grasped the effects and worth of divine protection embroidery. The butler then says there's something else. This matter was reported to him by Sakur. The butler adds that Sakur intends to verify the matter with her directly and should be heading to see her shortly. Lord Roden replies that if Sakura has spoken of it, then the spirits must somehow be involved. This development raises concerns about where matters may be headed from this point forward. After a measured pause, the butler offers his speculation. It is possible that she possesses magic eyes. There was something Evie realized after reincarnating into this world. As she sews the final seam into her clothing, the head maid watches from nearby, a faint smile on her face. She remarks that she had intended to test the girl's level of skill, but instead finds herself astonished. To complete such precise work even with breaks in between, it is extraordinary. Evie lowers her gaze to her hands. She understands this is not a normal skill. It's an incomparable skill genius. Even in her previous life, she loved sewing. She had made clothes when her friends asked her to, but her current sewing skills is at a totally different level now. Her sewing speed is at the same as a sewing machine. Even without using paper cutouts, measuring tapes, and the like, she kept her clothes exactly according to her image. In the Nile household, she could never put in her best efforts, so she never realized. However, right now, above all, working as a seamstress is fun. She excitedly asks the maid if there's anything else she can do. The maid seems to think about it and admits thanks to her, they have already finished half a year's work, just when she thought she had made a new seamstress friend. Looking at it, there's nothing more she can teach her. Evie quickly blurts out that it is not true. She says she loves the clothes the head maid makes. The words come out more urgently than she intends. The head maid's expression softens. She pulls Evie into a warm embrace. In the short month since she came to this mansion, her superior, the head maid, has been very kind, and all the people of this mansion have been very nice to her. She's so glad to be here. It would be nice if she could keep on working at the mansion. However, their moment abruptly ends when an unfamiliar man steps into the room. He states that he is looking for Evie Nile. The head maid immediately recognizes him. She asks why he is here, at this mansion of all places. Evie quietly asks who he is. The head maid explains that he is the steward employed at Master Roden's estate in the royal capital. He manages the villa there. It is rare for him to visit this residence. She wonders aloud whether he might be an acquaintance of Evie's. Evie quickly shakes her head. She does not know him. If he is the steward of the capital estate, then he holds the highest rank among the servants there. Someone so trusted by Lord Roden would not come without reason. Why would such a person seek out a mere seamstress? The man steps forward and says that she must be Miss Nile. He apologizes for entering unannounced. There is something he would like her to examine. He carefully takes out a small creature. Evie's eyes widen. She gently takes it from his hands, cradling it as if it might break. She exclaims it is adorable. It is a spirit, is it not? As she looks closer, she notices there are many clinging to him as well. The head maid suddenly raises her hands and blurts wait. In a panicked voice she asks Evie if she can see the spirits. Evie blinks at her reaction and answers yes. But then she hesitates, realizing that perhaps she was not supposed to say that so easily. Ordinary people cannot see spirits. But then again, Sakura can see them too. Sakura adjusts his glasses calmly. He states that, as he suspected, that is the case. Magic eyes. Both he and she possess eyes capable of perceiving spirits. It is rare, but such individuals do exist among royalty and high-ranking magicians. However, he adds, her case appears to go further than simple perception. Since arriving at this mansion, she has been conducting spirit healing. Evie stares at him, confused. He explains that from the moment he entered, he noticed many spirits bearing golden embroidery upon their garments. Those are the ones she has repaired. She thinks back. At the Nile household, she had always mended the clothes of the spirits that followed her. But healing them? He tells her that she may not have intended to heal them. However, for spirits, what she has been doing is precisely that. What humans perceive as clothing is not clothing at all. It is part of their bodies. Strong spirits appear in splendid attire. Spirits whose power has been stolen wear torn, damaged garments. The tears are wounds. Through them, their energy slowly leaks away. The small spirit in her arms trembles faintly. The steward explains that this child is one of those injured spirits. Now that she truly looks, she sees it. Its clothes are worn thin and ragged. The steward asks her to repair this child's garments. As she channels her magic into the small spirit, the steward watches closely, the torn fabric that clings to the spirit's body begins to mend. He breathes out in visible astonishment and states that the wounds are recovering. Spirits whose garments are torn, garments that are part of their very bodies, eventually lose their strength. Their power drains away until they disappear entirely. By repairing their clothing, she is truly healing them. She stands frozen. Then the realization settles in. All those tattered spirits at the Nile household. They had gathered around her because they wanted to be healed. Her voice is quiet when she asks why so many spirits become worn and torn in the first place. The steward's expression darkens. He answers that it is the work of cursed spirit art users. Gyarishi. They are individuals who forcibly steal power from spirits. Such acts are unforgivable. National law strictly forbids it. Yet illegal groups still surface from time to time. She flinches. If so many injured spirits lingered at the Nile residence, does that mean there is a Gyarishi in that house? She realizes it is entirely possible. Those parents seem like the type who use illegal methods. She resolves that this matter must be reported to Lord Roden. The steward calls her name gently, drawing her back. He states that her ability is confirmed. As long as Gyarishi exist within the kingdom, spirits will continue to suffer. He kneels before her and formally requests that she continue administering healing to the spirits. Without hesitation, she agrees. He bows his head deeply in gratitude. Evie looks awkward. The head maid notices that and steps forward, telling him to stop. Can't he see that she's troubled by that? She then tilts her head and remarks that it is surprising to learn she possesses magic eyes. It's kind of bad though. Evie stiffens. The head maid quickly clarifies that's not what she meant. She explains that female wielders of magic eyes, regardless of status, are automatically considered candidates for royal concubinage. And if word spreads that she can heal spirits, the Nile household may grow desperate to reclaim her. Of course, she doesn't want to return, does she? She thinks returning to that house would be an absolute no. The steward assures her not to worry. If the matter is entrusted to Lord Roden, no harm will reach her. Everyone here will protect her. He excuses himself. But before he can leave, she says there is something she wishes to convey to Lord Roden. Her vision blurs. Heat surges through her body. Pain follows. And everything goes dark. When she awakens, she is lying in bed. Lord Roden and the head maid stand nearby, both visibly concerned. Lord Roden asks if she is feeling well. She startled them when she suddenly collapsed. He mentions that he has already received a report from the steward and asks again about her condition. She attempts to speak, but her throat hurts. The head maid starts shaking the doctor, demanding to know what illness this is. The doctor blurts that it is growing pains. Both Lord Roden and the head maid stare at him. He explains that after arriving at this mansion, she has finally begun receiving proper nourishment. Her body is catching up. She does not resemble a 15-year-old because she has been malnourished for years. Now that her body is supplied with what it needs, growth is beginning all at once. The head maid exhales in relief and remarks that if it is only growing pains, then there is little to be done. Lord Roden tells her she must take a temporary break from her work as a seamstress. It may be frustrating, but patience is necessary. He adds that he has heard the outline of events from the steward. The situation is more complex than he initially believed, but she has nothing to fear. They will discuss it further once she has recovered. Then his tone grows quieter. Regarding her future, he apologizes in advance and asks whether she would allow him to take certain countermeasures first. But there is someone whom he would like her to meet. Yui stares at her reflection in the mirror and thinks to herself that this is very bad. She has been on bed rest for 2 months since she collapsed from her growing pains, and she has finally recovered enough to return to her job. The maids tremble, knowing it is quite shocking, is it not? Just then, someone knocks on the door. Roden steps in and calls out to Yui, asking how she is feeling. When his eyes fall on her, he is completely taken aback. He tells her that this is rather surprising, that the impression she is giving off is totally different, and wonders if she has grown a little taller. She then realizes that is right, her grown-up reincarnated self has become an unimaginably beautiful lady. She looks at herself in the mirror again and remembers her time in the Nil house. Back then her skin and hair were dry and ragged, so she never truly paid attention to her appearance, but now she takes a proper look at herself and carefully notices her silky silver hair and her big eyes. Just thinking that this is what happens after going out and dressing up like this leaves her feeling slightly taken aback. She begins to wonder what she should do next. She wants to make clothes that truly match this figure. A camisole with plenty of lace for undergarments, silk stockings that would pair perfectly with a garter belt, and a pale-colored dress to match the soft and ephemeral feeling she gives off. She becomes deeply absorbed in her ideas. Even though they are only about herself, the thoughts keep flowing. Without stopping, one design leading to another in her mind. A maid reaches out and grabs her gently so she will stop staring at herself in the mirror over and over again. They all agree that it is a big transformation. They mention that when she first came to this mansion, she was all skin and bones and such a cutie, so they never noticed anything beyond that at the time. Now they can clearly see that she is very cute. Another maid says that is so true and adds that trimming her hair was the right decision because it matches her perfectly. Then one maid suddenly comes very close to her and says that come to think of it, she really looks nothing like the people from the Nil household. Even the butler speaks up and states that if anything, her countenance seems closer to that of the royal family. He explains that the Naley household had been intermarrying with the royal family until a few generations prior. The maid continues by saying that beautiful people are common among the royal family, especially with such a youthful appearance like hers. Evie looks confused as the maids go on to say that she is very likely to be targeted by kidnappers. Evie says that she will be careful, but before she can finish her sentence, the maids become firm and determined. They tell her that from now on she is forbidden from being alone by herself, and if she goes out looking like that, she will surely be kidnapped by strange people. The butler agrees with them and says they are certainly right. Until they can guarantee her safety, he asks if she would mind staying inside this mansion. Somehow, this has become their usual issue. After some time passes, Evie is sewing, and she thinks to herself that after everything that was said and done, sewing is still her hobby, and it is how she spends most of her free time. The maids wish her a good morning and remind her that she has been working hard since early morning, has she not? They ask what she is making today. She replies that they are lace nightings. The maids immediately grow excited. They gather around to take a closer look and tell her it is amazing and very pretty, saying they truly find it wonderful. One of them says she would love something like that for her bridal veil. Hearing that, Evie suddenly gets an idea and says she wants to make them for everyone's bridal outfits. The maids become overjoyed and ask if she is serious. They beg her to make them and insist they will pay no matter the cost. Just then, the head maid notices them outside the room and calls out to them. They realize she is there and begin to tremble. The head maid tells them that it is nice to have dreams, but they should find a partner first, and she also reminds them that their voices could be heard all the way from the corridor. Faced with reality, the maids drop to the floor in disbelief, knowing that none of them has a partner anyway. Evie then asks if none of them truly has one. She says it is unexpected since all the maids in this mansion are such beautiful women. One maid replies that it is true, but many of them live for their job. They are always so busy that it is hard to think about love or compatibility. She adds that, come to think of it, there are simply too many effeminate men in this world. Another agrees and says she understands, because those men always ask which is more important, is it me or your job? They even mention that some ask if they love Roden. The maids know that if they were to fall in love with their master, there is no way they could continue working as maids. Evie is taken aback by their frustration, but she tells them that rather than being paired with a terrible man, are they not fortunate as they are? Her words shake them, and they say those are surprising words. Evie knows she is thinking of her parents from the Neely household, who only saw their children as tools to be used. Even in her past life, her father was oppressive and her mother lived like a slave. She could never call it a good home. Looking at her parents, she cannot even imagine dreaming of marriage. The maids tell her she has been through a lot, has she not, and they grow emotional as one of them hugs her tightly and apologizes for bringing up painful memories. Evie thinks about it and remembers that she recently spoke about something similar with Roden. They ask if it was about marriage, and she realizes that it was, because he had asked her if she had any thoughts about it. He had asked her what kind of person she would wish to marry, or if there was anything she hoped for in the marriage itself. She had taken a moment to think before answering that as long as her needlework was not taken away from her, she would be fine with anything. Now, back in the present, she finds herself wondering again why he asked her that question. She lowers her gaze to her work and sees that it is finished. She has sewn 50 crocheted lace shawls, each one completed with care. She quietly wonders whether the maids will actually use them after she gives them away as presents. Suddenly, the door opens and the maids rush inside in a panic. They hurry toward her and tell her there is trouble. Confused, she rises from her chair and asks what is going on. One of the maids answers that Roden is calling for her. Apparently there is a visitor who has come to see her, but before she can finish explaining, she grabs Evie by the hand and urges her to come quickly. Evie is left in confusion as they rush through the corridor. She keeps thinking about what it could mean to have a visitor specifically for her. At the same time, a man asks Roden whether the person he wished to introduce is a seamstress from this manor. Roden replies that she is still very young, but her skills are exemplary, and he is certain that his grace will like her. Before he can continue speaking, there is a knock at the door. The maid announces that she has brought Evie. Evie steps inside the room. Roden stands beside the man and apologizes to her for summoning her so suddenly. He tells her that there is someone he would like to introduce. He then introduces the visitor as Arjet Rameshto Metro. The name alone leaves Evie completely stunned, and her eyes open wide in shock. Roden continues by explaining that he is the former king of this kingdom and that he invited him here in order to meet her. Evie's attention shifts to the former king's outfit, and she cannot stop staring. She wonders what kind of clothing he is wearing. His coat is covered with expensive jewels sewn onto it in a random manner, scattered all over the fabric. The coat itself is too long, and she questions whether it does not make it difficult for him to move around properly. His shirt resembles something like an old man's golf wear. In her mind, she thinks that he has the figure of a movie star, yet he is dressed in such tacky clothing. The sight of it feels horrid to her. Without hesitation, she steps closer to him, reaches out, grabs his clothes, and tells him to take them off immediately. The maids begin to tremble, unsure of what she is doing. Evie continues firmly, saying that for someone like him to wear such horrendous clothes is absolutely unforgivable. Even though it is their first meeting, she can clearly see that a person with such a refined appearance and atmosphere should not be dressed in something so terrible, from the cutting to the sewing. As a seamstress, she finds it impossible to overlook. The former king turns to Roden and calls out to him, asking whether having his clothes criticized the very moment they meet really means they are that bad. Roden answers that he does have experience, but to him they look no different from ordinary clothing, which in other words means he lacks fashion sense. The former king responds that he is usually indifferent about the way he dresses, but since Empress Evie has spoken so strongly, he supposes he will go and change. Evie quickly stops him again and tells him to wait. She asks him to come with her to her workroom. She says that she does not know who made these clothes, but she will fix them herself. The former king looks surprised by her boldness. Roden tells her to wait a moment and listen to what he has to say first, but the former king waves it off and says that it is fine and that this is interesting. He then reveals that these clothes were made by the Naili Households Company for the sake of the royal family. In other words, they are the work of her parents. Hearing this leaves Evie deeply shocked. The former king then tells her that he would like to see how she intends to fix them. He says he wants her to show him what she is capable of and calls her Evie the seamstress. In the Nil household mansion, the Duke smashes things apart in anger. He is filled with rage as he curses someone and says it is truly annoying. The one he is cursing is none other than Roden. In his mind, Roden is just a lowly upstart civil officer, yet he was promoted from a viscount to a marquis. Because of that promotion, the Duke himself was demoted from a duke to an earl. Just then, a maid steps into his room and informs him that a messenger from the castle has arrived, asking whether the divine embroidery that was requested 3 years ago has been completed. The Duke yells at her to be quiet and says he has no time for such nonsense. He curses at her and orders her to get out. The maid quickly says she will take her leave. Outside, the maids whisper among themselves, questioning whether he was not just demoted because he could not do a decent job. Another maid quickly tells her to be quiet in case the Duke hears them. The Duke thinks to himself that just because he is a little behind on his work, what rubbish are they saying? He reminds himself that the Nil household is the proud clan uniquely capable of performing divine embroidery, and that their ancestral bloodline is tied to the venerable first king. To be brought down by a low-born brat like Rodran is absolutely unforgivable. He decides that Rodaran's luck will soon run out. He looks at the contract that has been passed down through the Nilith household. Because of this spider's contract, the members of the Nil household are able to borrow power from spiders in order to perform divine embroidery. It is an agreement exchanged with spiders that were originally demonic beings. The effects of the contract are tremendous when leaving the household for reasons such as marriage. The contract must be precisely rewritten by the head of the house. He knows that if this is not done, the moment the family name changes, the contract will break, and the spider will revert into a demonic being and feast on the humans nearby. The Duke recalls that Roden said he wanted to take Evie in because of her skills as a seamstress, but he believes that is not the real reason. Roden's true objective is the bloodline of the Nil household. In order to rise higher within the kingdom, he wants to secure royal blood. The Duke thinks Roden knows nothing about the contract. The moment he takes Evie as his wife, that will be the end of the Calistilla household. The Duke smirks and curses Roden, feeling pleased as he imagines everything falling into the depths of hell. Meanwhile, in the Calistilla mansion, the former king takes off his clothes just as Evie requested. He comes to her workroom, removes them, and hands them to her, asking what she intends to do now. Roden gulps, clearly nervous. Evie takes the clothes and says she will take them apart completely and retailor a new set for him. The former king asks if she can truly do such a thing. She answers yes and begins working immediately. She looks at the sleeves first and tries to cut them down, but she is unable to cut through the fabric. The former king reminds her that the clothes are slash-proof. He had mentioned earlier that they were made by the Nilith household's company for the sake of the king. Evie looks confused. The former king asks if she did not hear what he said before. Roden then explains to her that Arjet Sama is this kingdom's former king and that he was the crowned king until a few years ago. Evie is completely shocked. She steps back and covers her mouth in surprise. She wonders if she has just taken an incredibly rude stance toward the former king. Panic rises in her, and she apologizes at once. The former king tells her not to worry and to be at ease. He then asks her what she thinks. As expected, she cannot repair clothes made with divine embroidery, can she? She realizes that is true and wonders what she should do. She can perform divine embroidery, but she does not know the method to undo it. Even so, she does not want to give up. As she struggles with what to do next, the spirit suddenly appears and begins to use its magic, leaving them all surprised. Evie stares at the place where the spirit had been and wonders what that was just now. She is clearly surprised and asks if the spirit helped her. Even the former king looks startled and asks if that was a gloom spirit. He questions how the spirit managed to do something like that. Roden, who does not have magic eyes and cannot see spirits, asks what just happened and calls out to Evie for an explanation. Although he cannot see it, the divine protection embroidery on the clothes was suddenly cut. Evie answers yes and explains that thanks to that, she can finally repair them. She says firmly that she will now remake the clothes into something worthy of the king. Both men still look confused, but she has already started working again. They watch her closely, paying attention to every movement of her hands. The king comments that she is incredibly fast. Roden mentions that he was just as surprised the first time he saw her skills and asks the king whether her ability is on par with the successive heads of the Nile family. The king replies that it is, yet he has never witnessed divine protection embroidery like this before. He calls it an unbelievable sight. As Evie continues sewing, more spirits begin to gather around her. Roden repeats in confusion, spirits. The king explains that the spirits appear to be lending her their power for the divine protection embroidery, but such a phenomenon is extremely rare. He adds that when he saw her earlier, he also sensed the power of the lunar spirit. One of the spirits smiles gently at Evie. She looks at it and softly asks if it will help her as well, thanking it sincerely. The king explains that the earlier spirit was what people call a gloom spirit, and that spirits do not simply obey human wishes. The fact that they are willingly helping her means this is nothing short of a miracle. He turns to Roden and reminds him that as he said before, Evie's ability is rare, but if left as it is, it could become dangerous. Roden replies that he thinks the same. The king then says he understands now why Roden called her here. She cannot be left alone in this situation. After some time passes, the king finishes changing into the remade clothes and thanks Evie for her hard work. She turns to look at him and asks if he has finished changing, but the moment she sees him properly, she freezes. He tells her that for now, he wore it exactly as she instructed and asks her how it looks and whether it suits him. She is completely surprised but also deeply satisfied with the result. She exclaims that he looks really good and says there is no way he would not. She finds him very cool. He questions if that is truly so, and even Roden nods in agreement. Evie feels that the king's aura is dazzling, almost like a movie star standing before her. As she looks at him, new ideas begin forming in her mind. She thinks about making even more clothes for him to try. A military uniform would suit him well. A yukata would look fantastic too. Even a horse-like suit would probably fit him perfectly. She becomes so lost in her imagination that when he calls her name, she gasps in surprise. Realizing she drifted off, she quickly focuses again and asks if the clothes feel comfortable. He answers yes. She then asks if any part needs adjustment. He replies that no changes are needed and that it fits just fine. He adds that what amazes him most is the texture, which feels completely different from the clothes he has worn until now. He says it is the first time he has ever worn something like this. He gently pats her on the head and thanks her sincerely. Evie is startled that someone of such high rank would praise her directly. The king then calls her name again and asks if she understands the significance of divine protection embroidery in this country. She looks confused as he explains that this country has long shared a strong affinity with spirits. Because of that, divine protection embroidery, which incorporates the power of spirits, is an extremely valuable skill. On top of that, she not only possesses rare ability, but she is also clearly loved by the spirits themselves. He tells her that she may be a special seamstress equal to the founder of the Naley family. However, that also makes her situation dangerous. She quietly repeats the word dangerous, unsure of what he means. He says he will explain in detail later, but many people will surely try to use her ability. Especially the Naley family. Once they discover the truth, they will try to take her back home at any cost. Evie is visibly shaken. She feels overwhelmed as memories of her past surface in her mind, and she knows without a doubt that she does not want to return there. The king says he understands how she feels. To prevent that from happening, he has thought of a solution. He gently takes her hand and tells her that he wishes to ask for her hand in marriage. He lowers himself and kisses her hand, then clearly asks her to marry him. Evie is completely taken aback, and so are the maids who were secretly listening outside, along with the guards standing nearby. The atmosphere turns chaotic in an instant. Later, one of the maids rushes forward and grabs Evie, asking if she is really getting married to the former king. Everyone is in disbelief. Another one turns to Roden and demands to know what this is supposed to mean, but Roden calmly answers that it is entirely the king's decision. Earlier the king looks at Evie and asks what she thinks, saying he would like to hear her opinion directly. Evie feels overwhelmed. She tells him that she understands her divine protection embroidery ability could become dangerous if people learn about it, but she does not understand why marriage is necessary. She also points out that they have only just met, and that their social positions do not match at all. He is a king, and she is only a seamstress. The king calls her name and reminds her that he already said she is not just an ordinary seamstress. Her divine protection embroidery is a national treasure in this country. Furthermore, if she also possesses magic eyes, she could even become a royal concubine. He asks her if she understands what that means. She looks confused, and he explains that she has political value. If news of her ability spreads, nobles will use every possible method to obtain her. If that happens, she will either be used in a political marriage or in prison and forced to produce divine protection embroidery. In either case, he cannot promise her a bright future. It would be no different from how she was treated at the Niley household. As the former king of this country and as a person, he says he cannot overlook such a situation. He will protect her ability and her soul as a seamstress. He gently places his hands on her cheeks and tells her he will wait for her answer. Evie falls into deep thought. She wonders if she will once again allow her freedom to be taken away like before, or if she will choose to marry the king. To her, the answer becomes obvious. She reaches out and holds the king's hand, telling him she will marry him. In her heart, she thinks that he is a kind person. She bows slightly and asks him to please take care of her. The king places his hands around her waist and lifts her up. The maids gasp in shock. He looks into her eyes and declares that their engagement is now established, and tells her to take care of him as well. And that is how, from that day on, she became the king's fiancée. The king instructs everyone to offer their regards, then tells her that for now they can discuss the future while they eat. She is still surprised as she takes a seat at the table in the noble's dining room, her mind filled with questions. She calls out to Roden and asks why she was brought into the dining room meant for nobles. He asks if she is not used to it, and she quietly shakes her head. He reminds her that she is already the king's fiancée, and in terms of social standing, hers is now even higher than his, asking if he should start addressing her more respectfully. Food is served to her, and even the spirits gather around. One of them asks another if they are going to bathe in the soup. Roden then says they should speak about her future. He explains that the engagement guarantees her immediate safety. Although the king currently holds no real political power, he is also in a position where he cannot easily be harmed by power either. However, there is still the issue of the spider's contract. She asks what he means by that. He explains that the Nil family's contracted spiders were originally demonic beings and asks if she did not know. She replies that she did. She once read about it in a picture book. It told the story of a pure-hearted maiden who had eyes that could see only spirits. One day she encountered a strange demonic spider said to devour spirits, yet it was surrounded by them. She approached the unusual creature, and over time the girl and the spider became friends. The spider, once called evil, granted her wisdom and the ability to become a seamstress. That maiden became the founder of the Nil family. Since then, the family has worked together with spiders. The king confirms this and explains that the beings they deal with are not ordinary demons. A creature capable of destroying wisdom and magic is called a sacred beast. The original spider was a vicious demon that mutated into a sacred beast, which is extremely rare. The offspring of a sacred beast usually inherit that holy nature, but they must be carefully raised. He has heard that even if they become holy beasts, their original instincts may still cause them to go berserk. They are precious yet dangerous creatures, difficult to manage. For generations, the head of the Nil family has signed contracts and secretly managed them under strict supervision. It seems the current head has failed in that duty. Roden admits that part of the situation was due to his own thoughtlessness, as he never received a full explanation of the spider contract. She is told that when she changes from her maiden name to her married name, she must rewrite the contract. If her name changes without updating it, it will count as breaking the contract, and the spider will devour her. When Roden first became her employer, her father, as head of the household, was responsible for explaining the contract, yet it appears he deliberately avoided doing so. Those who cannot properly manage their contracted spiders are unfit to remain family head. That is why the king declares that she will become the new head of the Nil family. She is stunned and cannot believe what she is hearing. The king says it is not surprising. There is a clause in the Nil household contract stating that the most gifted person in the family qualifies as head. He asks if she has not already fulfilled that condition. Roden confirms that she has, and with the current king's approval it will become official. Even so, she feels everything is happening too quickly. She is told that although her father may appear generous, even with the former king's protection, as long as her father remains family head he can continue his wrongdoing and use his connection to the former king as a shield. In that case, she could still be placed in danger. Roden adds that if she becomes family head, she will no longer have to fear being devoured by the spider after marriage. She asks if she truly will not have to worry. He explains that in this country, if both husband and wife hold noble titles, they are allowed to keep separate surnames. For her own safety and for the country's benefit, it is best that she becomes family head, and the advantages are great for both sides. She feels overwhelmed by how much has happened in a single day, but she tells herself that if she has the ability, then she must take responsibility. She declares that she will become the Nil family head. The king gently pats her head and says she spoke well, that he will rely on her. Her priority now is to establish her social position, while he will handle the marriage arrangements. Even if she becomes his queen, any children she bears will not have the right to the throne. Therefore, when she someday meets someone she truly loves, she may bear that person's child instead. He then turns to Roden and says they should meet the current king to obtain approval for her position as Nil family head. Roden suggests that in exactly 3 days the royal family will host a ball, which would be the fastest opportunity for her skills to be witnessed. The king agrees it is a good idea but worries it is too sudden and unprepared. He asks Evie if she can complete the necessary clothing in time, as both the dress and suit will require divine protection embroidery. Roden comments that 3 days is not enough and that it would be harsh. It is no simple task. Yet she firmly says it is not impossible and that she wants to do it. He asks if she can truly finish in 3 days and whether she already has colors in mind. She tells him he looks best in silver or blue. If he is serious, then they should go to the workroom immediately. In her excitement she suddenly realizes he has not even finished eating. He laughs at her reaction, and she becomes confused. He apologizes, explaining that he was only imagining how entertaining the meeting with the royal family will be. He reminds her to eat before starting work and gently pats her head. Their eyes are already fixed on the sketch as she finishes the final lines. She places it in front of them and suggests that for the ball in 3 days, they could go with a design like this. She has carefully drawn both her own outfit and the king's attire for the day of the ball, making sure the details are clear. The king studies the sketch and replies that it looks good. He leans in a little closer, observing that the design is simple and allows easy movement, which he appreciates. Roden also comments that it is appropriate for a formal ball. Their outfits clearly complement each other, and there will even be floral elements incorporated into the design. Hearing their approval, she says she will complete everything by the day of the ball. However, Roden's expression turns serious as he asks if she can truly finish clothing with divine protection embroidery in just 3 days. He reminds her that divine protection embroidery requires magical power, and she has only recently completed Arjit's clothes. He gently tells her that if it will exhaust her, then it is fine not to push herself. She looks at him in surprise before answering that for her, it is not impossible at all. When he asks again if she is certain, she firmly replies yes. She explains that whenever she embroiders divine protection, she does not feel drained. Instead, she feels as though she is becoming stronger, and because of that, the process is actually enjoyable for her. The king listens and remarks that perhaps her magical power is simply far greater than that of others. It is commonly said that it takes years of training to master divine protection embroidery. After a brief pause, he turns to her and asks if he may ask something. If she possesses such extraordinary ability, why did she not embroider divine protection at the family residence? He asks whether she deliberately held herself back because her father was unable to embroider divine protection himself. If the family had known about her true ability, would they not have treated her at least a little better? She starts fidgeting with her hands nervously before she admits in a quieter voice, it is because she did not want to embroider. On her 10th birthday, she was given a spider and needle for the first time. She was told to do a divine protection embroidery without being taught how to do so. She learned later that people in the Nile family touch the spider so that the magical power stays in the thread, and that's how they embroider divine protection, but at the time she was trying to sew perfectly, so she unconsciously controlled the magic power. If they embroider divine protection, they shouldn't suppress the magical power. It wasn't until many years later that she realized that she could also embroider divine protection, but by that time, she didn't want to embroider divine protection for that family's sake. They only thought of her as a laborer. A faint shadow passes through his eyes as his expression softens. After a quiet pause, he reaches out and rests his hand gently on her head. His voice lowers as he apologizes for making her revisit memories that must still hurt. Up until now it must have been so lonely. However, he tells her that she does not need to worry anymore because she has them by her side now. She stays quiet for a moment, letting his words sink in, and then softly answers yes. As she thanks them sincerely, a sudden cough interrupts her. Roden quickly asks what is wrong, is she feeling unwell? He suggests that perhaps she has spoken too much. Since she was unable to properly talk with anyone for many years, her throat may have grown weak, and her physical strength might not have fully returned yet. He advises her to take a short rest. The king then walks over to the sofa and sits down, patting the space beside him and telling her to come over. She looks at him, slightly surprised by the gesture. She startles the moment he gently pulls her closer and settles her head onto his lap, her breath catching in her throat. His sudden closeness leaves her frozen, and she calls his name in clear astonishment, unsure of how to react. Yet his response is calm as he asks if she is not tired after everything that has happened. He tells her she should rest, if only for a little while. Before she can protest again, his fingers begin to move through her hair in slow, steady strokes, quieting her thoughts. He tells her softly to be still. He assures her that when the time comes, he will wake her. She lets herself give in and slowly closes her eyes. When she was still with the Nile family, she was always alone in a cold room. Even though her circumstances were difficult, she never thought that she wanted someone to be ready for her. There was no one who would feel that way for her. By the time she was 10, no, she's sure that even before she reincarnated into this world, she probably wanted someone to stay by her side like this. After she falls asleep, her breathing gradually becoming soft and even, both Roden and the king look down at her in silence. For a moment, neither of them speaks. The king is the first to break the quiet, saying that it seems she intends to complete the work even if it is unreasonable to finish everything within 3 days. For now, they should let her rest. Roden lightly places a finger against his chin, thinking, then admits that although the king had previously asked him for advice about this matter, he was still surprised. The decision to become engaged to her happened far more quickly than he expected. The king asks what exactly he is trying to imply. Roden answers that he is simply surprised. From what he understood before, the king did not seem to hold a favorable view of marriage. A brief silence follows. The king's expression grows distant as he mutters, "So this is what he thinks." Roden immediately apologizes, explaining that he only spoke out of curiosity. The king dismisses the apology and says it does not matter. Looking back on his past, he cannot say that marriage is good for him. After all, it was his marriage that ultimately led to him relinquishing the throne. A long time ago, when he was still king of this country, he was married to 2 women. The first queen was a doll-like person. When he was crowned at 12 years old, she was chosen from the crown princess candidates by magic eyes. She was born in a high-ranking family and was carefully raised. She entrusted everything to her nanny, Baya, and did not show her intentions. They became a married couple, but they never even spoke to one another. The first night they spent together after their marriage resulted in Amnat. However, their relationship did not change after his birth. The queen did not even take an interest in her own child. Amnat doesn't know his mother's face. He was raised by him and his servants. A few years passed away from an illness at a young age. He was grateful she gave birth to a son for him, but his impression of hers was just faint. The second queen was a princess from a neighboring country chosen due to an evil influence. It was rare for the neighboring country to be under an evil influence. She lived in discomfort and oppression. He was pushed into that marriage. Halfway through, he felt like he was being forced into it. To that country, the evil influences did not differentiate on who it controlled. Her life was full of difficulties. In that castle, at least he wanted her to live a calm and peaceful life. But for her who had lived an oppressed life, even a little kindness became a powerful drug. The queen became obsessed with him. That was the beginning of the tragedy. She depended on him too much, she was jealous of his female escort knights and maids, only a shell of the former queen remained. It got to the point where the queen was jealous of the spirits. She was even jealous of the spirits who are regarded as the guardians of the country. She reached out to the master of the spirits. When the spirit master descended, the queen's action upset the guardians of the country. He barely managed to avoid losing the protection of the spirits. The queen was branded a criminal, their marriage was annulled, and she was exiled. He also bears that burden, and as such, he conceded the throne. With a bitter expression, he admits that it is no wonder the thought of marriage leaves such a bitter taste in his mouth. In the end, he had grown sick of his own lack of power. He could not make anyone happy. However, today, when he saw her divine protection embroidery for the first time, he changed his mind. The skill she possesses and the sincerity in her soul as an artist are not things that should be lost or trampled on. More than that, he realizes that if there are still things left for him to protect, then he wants to protect them with his own hands. Roden quietly responds, asking if that is truly how he feels, and admits that way he can rest assured since he will be troubled if she's unhappy in this marriage. The king answers that he understands before pointing out he supports her deeply. Roden then kneels beside her sleeping form and says of course he would, as she is like a cute younger sister to him and he sincerely wants her happiness. The king nods and says that he will keep that in mind, and she will continue to rely on him in the future. After a brief pause, Roden shifts the topic and asks whether he has decided who will serve her from now on. Since her condition has not fully recovered, any servants assigned to her should consult with a doctor. The king responds that he has considered it, then falls briefly into thought. Roden notices and asks what is wrong. The king answers that it is nothing serious. He has already selected a maid and a guard as candidates, though they each have certain bad habits. He cannot help but feel that the maid, in a different sense, might pose a kind of danger to her. Roden looks confused and repeats, a danger to her. If that is the case, perhaps it would be safer to reconsider the selection. The king raises his hand and firmly says no, she is competent. She is simply a little unusual, and he is unsure how to explain it. The problem is that she has an unhealthy obsession with beautiful girls. As if summoned by the timing of his words, the door suddenly swings open and the maid bursts in, loudly announcing that it is time to pick her up and eagerly asking where her lovely princess is. The king mutters under his breath that this is exactly what he meant and tells her to open doors quietly because she will wake Evie. The maid can hardly contain herself and excitedly asks if she is over there, saying she wants to see her. Before she can take another step forward, another woman storms in behind her and strikes her sharply on the head, scolding her for her rudeness and reminding her that she is standing before Arjid. Arjid lets out a weary sigh and covers his face with one hand. Rodin looks between the two women and asks who they are. Arjid answers that they are the candidates to become her personal attendants. Evie wakes up, slowly rubbing her eyes. She slept for a while. By the time she woke up, the sun had already set. Right after she woke up, Arjid introduced her to two people. She looked surprised and blurts personal attendants. And they are here for her. He replies, yes, he brought them from the capital, Maid Minachi and Knight Stahl Mendez. He reminds her she is eventually going to become royalty, they have to prepare for possible danger. The two of them have been carefully selected. They are highly skilled, and she should not hesitate to rely on them from now on. Even so, she swallows nervously and answers in a small voice, okay. In her heart, she cannot help but think that assigning her personal attendants feels excessive when she is only a seamstress. Still, considering everything involving her father, the thought of having someone by her side is comforting. Gathering her courage, she turns toward them and offers a soft, hesitant smile, greeting them politely and saying it is nice to meet them. She breaks into a radiant smile and enthusiastically declares that from now on they will be the ones taking care of her. Minachi's mouth falls open as she begins admiring her face without restraint. Evie is caught completely off guard, and before she can react, she finds herself wrapped in a tight, warm hug as Minachi gushes that her new master is such a cute girl and that she is overjoyed to serve her. Evie's eyes widen in shock, her cheeks turning red as she stiffly blinks in confusion. The knight quickly pulls Minachi away and apologizes on her behalf, bluntly explaining that this oddball can be a bit of a pervert but that she will keep her under control, so there is no need to worry. Minachi immediately protests that she is not a pervert and insists she simply loves beautiful girls. Evie stands there, completely unsure how to respond, while Arjid lets out another tired sigh and apologizes, saying that although the two of them are eccentric, they are more than capable. They each have over 10 years of experience. Minachi is a valued member of the Secret Service, and Stahl's family has produced outstanding soldiers for generations. Her father serves as an advisor to the National Armed Forces, and she herself is a talented knight. Arjid then asks Rodin if he knows Stahl, and Rodin confirms that she is strong and loyal, assuring Evie that her skills are beyond doubt. Stahl steps forward formally and tells Evie to rest easy. As subjects of RJ, they will protect her without question. Her wishes are their command, and she need only speak if there is something she requires. They will serve her faithfully as the woman who will become RJ's recognized wife. Evie looks startled by the weight of those words before lowering her head in a polite bow, asking them to take care of her as well. She hesitates, wondering if it is appropriate for her to say what is on her mind, but then timidly asks if she may make one request. Stahl immediately answers that of course she may. To everyone's surprise, Evie's eyes begin to well with tears as she points at the armor and asks Stahl to remove it at once. She explains that the way it is being worn is completely wrong. Stahl lets out a small squeak and instinctively shields herself, asking if she truly must remove it. She hurriedly explains that this armor is an heirloom of the Mendez family, passed down for generations, and there is a strict rule that it cannot be removed in front of a man before marriage. Evie quickly reassures her and says not to worry, because she will have the men step out of the room. She explains that she only intends to adjust the way Stahl is wearing the armor and that it will not take long. From the moment they first met, Evie noticed something felt off. The bindings around Stahl's chest were pulled far too tight, and the way the armor sat against her body looked painful. She simply wants to correct it. Once the men step out, Stahl hesitantly removes the armor piece by piece. As the metal comes away, her figure is revealed more clearly, and her hair spills down freely around her shoulders. As Stahl looks away in embarrassment, Evie's lips slightly part, her face tinged red. She cannot help but think that she looks unexpectedly cute. Just moments ago she appeared so stern and commanding in full armor. Stahl admits that she has always worn it this way and that until now she never felt particularly bothered. She asks how Evie could possibly tell it was wrong. Evie answers that the moment she saw the armor, she got the feeling it was wrong. She believes parts of the armor and even a portion of the skirt contained divine protection embroidery. She sensed a magical power in the metal. She thinks it was likely crafted by someone who possessed magic eyes. And as another person who has magic eyes, she can see the way Stahl has been wearing it prevents the armor from displaying its true power. Evie smiles gently and says that with armor and clothing alike, if worn properly, they can make a person stronger and even more beautiful. It is a special privilege that girls have. Stahl protests that she is a knight before she is a woman, but before she can say more, Evie reaches out and insists they also adjust the way she is wearing her undergarments. Stahl's face flushes a deep red, and she lets out a loud, startled scream that echoes beyond the room. The men outside look confused, wondering what could possibly be happening as the raised voice carries through the door. Moments later, Minachi steps out and calmly apologizes for the noise. Inside, Arjit observes that the aura surrounding the armor has changed. This must be the correct way to wear it. Evie nods and replies that this is how the creator originally intended it to be worn. Suddenly, the armor emits a brilliant light that nearly blinds everyone present. When the glow fades, a spirit comes out of the armor, her body lifted into the air. Arjit swallows hard and says that a spirit has manifested. He wonders if the armor itself contains a spirit. Seeing Evie's confusion, he explains that in extremely rare cases, when a master craftsman creates something exceptional, a spirit may choose to dwell within that creation. Even the spirit queen who protects the country resides within such an object. Her physical form is said to dwell in the great tapestry that hangs behind the throne, and legend says that the founder of the Nil family was the one who created it. Arjit says that he has heard many spirits choose to reside within objects crafted with divine protection embroidery. According to him, spirits are what give true life to such embroidery. Stahl then calls out to Evie and expresses her heartfelt gratitude. She says her body feels so light that it no longer feels like the same armor she has worn all her life. The spirit that had been hidden within it was finally released, and she believes it is all thanks to Evie. Evie quickly shakes her head and insists it was not her doing. She only corrected the way the armor was being worn. Still, she adds that the armor itself is truly remarkable. Rodin steps up beside Stahl and remarks that she was always beautiful, but now she has become even more so. His gaze does not waver from her. Stahl immediately blushes and calls him an idiot, yet he leans closer and murmurs that he is simply stating the truth. Minachi gasps dramatically and asks what exactly is going on between the two of them. Arjit calmly points out that they have known each other for quite some time. Minachi begins bouncing excitedly, demanding to know when this happened and insisting she wants every detail. Evie watches quietly, her eyes drawn instead to the spirit. She thinks it is such a beautiful spirit. It emerged from an heirloom created by a master craftsman, something of a level she has yet to achieve. She cannot help but wonder when she will be able to create something that allows a spirit to dwell within it like that. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Malia approaches her father with a wide smile. He asks why she is still awake so late. She replies brightly that she wanted to confirm whether he had secured the dress she mentioned for the ball, the one she liked the most. Her father clarifies if she is referring to the dress commissioned with divine protection embroidery. Her expression falls and she insists that she must have that particular one. Her father sighs and says that in that case, it cannot be helped. He will deal with the person who originally requested it. Malia beams and thanks him, saying that the ball is just around the corner and she cannot wait to see what kind of wonderful person she might meet while wearing that dress. On the day of the ball, Arjit finds himself unable to take his eyes off her the moment she steps out in her dress. His expression shows genuine surprise, and he says she looks as beautiful as a spirit. The dress suits her perfectly, perhaps even more so because she made it with her own hands. Malachi quickly appears at her side with a bright, satisfied smile and points out that she even helped apply a little makeup. But Evie doesn't care about that and anxiously asks Arjit how he feels about his own outfit. She circles around him, carefully inspecting every detail, asking if anything feels uncomfortable or if there is something he dislikes. He wears his hat, giving off a mysterious and composed vibe, and declares that of course he likes it. These are the clothes she personally made for him, so there is no way he would be dissatisfied. Hearing that, she blushes softly and says, "Is that really true?" They note that she seems more delighted by compliments about the clothes than about her own appearance. Arjit then shifts to a more serious tone and explains that before the evening party begins, he plans to take her to the royal palace to meet the current king, Amnat, his son. He intends to formally request approval for her to become the head of the Nil family. He asks if she is comfortable with that. She answers yes in a small voice, but soon admits that she has never set foot in the royal palace before. In fact, she has never attended a proper social gathering. She worries that it might be rude for someone like her to suddenly stand before the king. Arjid reassures her calmly, saying that he will escort her personally and remain by her side the entire time, so there is nothing for her to fear. Later she stands before the king, who softly smiles at her and formally introduces himself as the king of the country and the son of Arjid. She responds with a graceful bow, thinking to herself he appears to be a kind man. He then mentions that he has heard about her recent engagement to his father. Arjid confirms it and explains that during their courtship he granted her the title of seamstress maiden. He states that he can personally vouch for her exceptional skill and would like to recommend her as the new head of the Nil family in accordance with the long-standing contract with the spider. He then asks his son for his opinion. The king replies that it is an interesting proposal, noting that the abilities of the current Nil family have significantly declined and that the household was in fact scheduled to be dissolved soon. As the discussion continues, her attention drifts toward the throne. There, in its center, she sees a breathtaking spirit. She wonders if this could be the sacred spirit said to protect the nation, Kakufu. Yet as her eyes move lower, she notices a terrible burn marring the spirit's arm. Confusion and concern fill her expression. She turns to Arjid and politely excuses herself for interrupting, then asks what happened to the spirit's arm. Arjid's face grows serious as he lowers his gaze. He explains that several years ago, the injury was inflicted by a curse cast by the former queen after she fell into witchcraft. It was an extremely powerful spell, one that required the former queen's soul as payment. They summoned every skilled magician in the country to attempt a cure. Every possible method was tried, yet nothing worked. There was no sign of healing at all. She listens, her heart tightening at the thought that such an important spirit must have endured that pain for so long. Then she remembers Sakur, the steward who once healed before her eyes and asked her to care for spirits in the future. A sense of urgency overtakes her. Stepping forward without hesitation, she declares that she would like to try to heal the spirit. Arjid looks at her in shock and says that her offer is generous, but asks whether she is truly capable of doing such a thing. She answers honestly that she does not know. However, if a spirit is suffering, she wants to do whatever she can. She raises her hands and begins moving her needle carefully, the spider producing thread as she works. She explains that she is weaving a glove from magical thread, something that will become like an extension of her own hands. Perhaps through it, the wound may finally mend. As she continues, the thread reacts to the curse and wraps around Kakufu's hand, becoming part of it. For a moment, she thinks the wound might finally heal. For a brief second, the air feels still, and she dares to think the wound might finally close. Then, without warning, the thread begins to burn away. It unravels and disappears, unable to withstand the curse. Her heart sinks. It did not work. The wound is far too deep. She does not have the power to fully heal it. Just as that realization settles in, the king suddenly calls out to her. He drops down beside her and stares at the spirit's arm in disbelief. He points out that even so, the wound has healed slightly. Tears gather in his eyes as he says that until now, every attempt had failed completely, yet she managed to change something. Evie's eyes swell with tears as well, and she shakes her head, apologizing because she could not fix it. Arjit kneels beside her and gently pats her back, trying to steady her. But the king insists that is not true. His voice is thick with emotion as he explains that the spirit is not only important to the country. To the royal family, she is like family. His eyes glisten as he admits that is precisely why he is so happy, because for the first time, someone has shown them even the slightest possibility that the wound might one day heal. Then he looks at her with tearful eyes and thanks her. He calls her mother. The word leaves her frozen in shock. Arjit, equally startled, asks if this means he is acknowledging her and welcoming her into the family. The king answers yes. He recognizes her as the future head of her family as well. The ability to heal even a fragment of the Holy Spirit's wound proves she is worthy to lead one of the most technologically advanced noble families in their land. He adds that once she becomes the head, the contract tied to the family will enhance her abilities. Her power will grow far beyond what it is now. And when that time comes, he asks softly, will she try to heal Kikufu again? She lowers her gaze and thinks. If she becomes head of the family. If she grows stronger. Perhaps one day she truly can heal that terrible wound. She lifts her head and answers yes. She believes she might be able to. The king smiles gently and thanks her again. He then explains that an official ceremony will be arranged to legitimize the change of leadership. She and the current head of the family may have to compete in a formal needlework contest. For now, however, he hopes she enjoys the rest of the evening. Arjit lightly pulls her, signaling it is time to leave. But the king calls out once more and asks if she would grant him one more favor. Later, when she returns home, Malachi rushes to her side and asks if she is all right. It took quite some time. Evie explains that at Avnat's request, she made him a formal outfit for the evening party. Amnat had not fully trusted the Nile family's current craftsmanship and had originally planned to attend wearing ancestral garments. But he confided in her that he intends to announce his engagement tonight. If possible, he wanted to welcome his fiancée wearing something newly made. Malachi asks if it was difficult to sew alone in such a short time. She answers that she is fine. Avnat's spirit assisted her, a gentle presence with beautiful eyes and hair like young leaves. It is a formal outfit for a special occasion. She hopes that girl likes it. Stahl tells her she is certain it will be fine. After all, she poured her heart and soul into it. They decide to head to the evening party. There is still time before the engagement announcement, so they will eat and wait along the avenue. Malachi winks and says she is looking forward to meeting the king's fiancée. She, too, wonders who the woman might be and what kind of person she is. Across the ballroom, a beautiful girl with long flowing hair shows up. Her fierce gaze fixes on Mila. She identifies her as the younger daughter of the Nile family and says she has come to take back her precious dress. Evie quietly takes in her surroundings as a maid informs her that just beyond the tall pillar lies the venue for the evening party. When she peers past it, she is struck by the sheer number of guests gathered there and cannot hide her amazement. She then asks about the towering pillars and the wide sheets of fabric stretching between them. The maid explains that they form a boundary woven with divine protection embroidery, designed to block magic attacks and prevent enemy intrusion. Although the venue appears open at a glance, entry is strictly limited to the designated gate. Hearing this, Evie reflects that divine protection embroidery can be used in far more ways than she imagined, and she resolves to study harder to deepen her understanding. Malachi slips her hand into Evie's and gently pulls her toward the official entrance, but their steps slow when a sudden commotion draws everyone's attention. Guests nearby begin murmuring and turning their heads toward the disturbance. The maid notes that the trouble is occurring beyond the boundary, making it impossible for them to intervene from where they stand. Her eyes settle on a blonde young woman at the center of the scene, and she identifies her as Hania Fulk, the daughter of the Fulk family, aristocrats who have sustained themselves for generations through their mastery of fabric dyeing. It is widely known that Hania seldom attends social gatherings. Evie studies her from a distance and finds her strikingly beautiful, yet the anger burning in her eyes and the tight tension across her face suggests something serious has happened. A sharp voice cuts through the noise as a young woman questions Hania's behavior, asking if she intends to be rude upon their first meeting and warning her to mind her words. She then declares herself the next head of the Naley family. Evie freezes in shock as she recognizes the speaker as her younger sister, Melia. The maid glances at Evie in surprise and asks if that truly is her sister. Evie answers that it is, though it has been a long time since they last saw each other and Melia no longer resembles the girl she remembers. Hania demands that Melia return the dress. Melia responds with confusion and asks what she is talking about. Hania explains that the dress was specially prepared for today's event by the Fulk family, dyed using a newly developed blend of colors that required extensive time and effort to perfect. She insists that if one compares them closely, the shade of Melia's dress and her own are exactly the same. Several months earlier, she had commissioned the Naley family to stitch divine protection embroidery onto that dyed gown, yet the finished piece was never returned to her, and now Melia is wearing it as if it were her own. Her voice rises as she declares it her most treasured possession and demands that Melia change out of it immediately. Melia denies the accusation, claiming she has no idea what Hania means and insisting that the dress has belonged to her from the beginning. She argues that the garment Hania refers to is not the one she is wearing. Hania counters that the dress in her possession is merely a prototype and nothing compared to the original piece. Melia retorts that her father purchased the dress for her and accuses Hania of making unfounded claims. Watching closely, Evie immediately senses something is wrong. The fit of the dress is off. The chest is too tight, the waist does not sit properly, and the overall length and proportions do not align with Melia's frame. It is clear to her that the dress was tailored for Hania. The realization leaves her shaken as she understands that Melia has taken a client's commissioned gown. The man standing beside Melia steps forward and tells Hania to stop harassing his companion. Melia coldly remarks that this is precisely why she despises lowly craftsmen and turns as if to leave, but Hania calls after them firmly and tells them to wait. Hania steps forward and grabs Melia's arm, her voice shaking as she insists that she is only asking for her dress back and that tonight is very important to her. Melia forcefully shakes her off, and in the motion, the drink in her hand splashes across Hania's dress, staining the dress. Gasps ripple through the surrounding guests. Melia snaps, her voice raising, demanding to know who Hania thinks she is, arrogantly saying she is the heir to the Naley family. Evie stands frozen, stunned by the harshness in her sister's tone. Melia continues, shouting that from now on Hania will not see divine protection embroidery on any of her garments, and that she has brought this humiliation upon herself. She adds cruelly that a lower-class noble like Hania dared to attend an evening party dressed so impeccably, as if she were above her place. Hearing those words, Evie feels a chill run through her. She thinks quietly to herself that Melia has truly changed, and not for the better. He quietly tells her that perhaps she should take a short rest, seeing how shaken she is, but she tightens her clenched fists and firmly refuses. She says that ever since her previous life, she has always loved making clothes, and because of that, she understands deeply that creating something is never simple. So much time, effort, and love are poured into every stitch. To have something made with such care stolen and then ruined for selfish reasons is something she cannot accept. Tears gather in her eyes as she says she wants to mend Hania's stained dress herself. She wants to sew divine protection embroidery onto it and restore it properly. She adds that she intends to embroider it until it ascends to its third color. Her voice trembles slightly, and in her heart she knows she will never forgive Melia for what she has done. As they are about to head inside the venue, Malachi calls out to her and says that if that is what she wants to do, then she has a better idea. Malachi suggests that they report everything to King Amnath, saying she is certain he will be able to help. Evie looks confused and asks why they would need to go that far. Malachi apologizes for not telling her earlier and explains that the information has not yet been officially announced, but Hania is soon to become queen. At the same time, the surrounding guests begin to notice Hania more openly. Their eyes linger on the stain across her dress, and whispers spread as they realize that the daughter of the infamous Naley family poured a drink on her. Some feel sorry for her and think someone should step in to assist, but then they remember that the man who stood beside Melia is a military advisor and the only son of the Ramash family. Involving themselves would only draw unwanted attention. Just then, a fire spirit approaches Hania. She looks at it and wonders if it is trying to comfort her. Her heart feels heavy. In the end, she did not get her original dress back, and the one she is wearing is now ruined. Tonight was supposed to be the most important night of her life. At that moment, Evie steps forward and gently calls out to her. She introduces herself politely and apologizes for approaching so suddenly, stating that she is from the house of Naley. Hania looks confused, knowing that Evie belongs to the same family as Melia, but Evie lowers her head and sincerely apologizes for what her sister did. She asks if she may be allowed to fix the dress. Hania is taken aback by how sudden everything feels, but Evie explains that she can stitch divine protection embroidery and that the stain can be covered with careful embroidery work. Her voice becomes earnest as she asks again to let her repair it. Hania says she does not mind, but she questions why Evie is accompanied by the king's guardian spirit. Evie answers that she was sent by the king because he cannot come over at the moment and that he personally asked her to help. She adds that the king is very worried and that he cares for Hania deeply. Evie looks toward Hania's spirit and asks softly if it is her guardian spirit. She finds it amazing, knowing that a fire spirit is usually difficult to approach, yet it came to her without hesitation. She then turns to both spirits and asks if they can help her. They nod in response, and she smiles gently, thanking them before saying they should begin with the knot. Hania hesitates and asks if she truly intends to do this. Evie answers yes, explaining that tonight is important for both of them. The dress is meant for Hania's engagement announcement, so she will fix it properly. She begins to use her magic, and a faint light gathers around her hands, drawing the attention of the surrounding crowd. Guests turn and whisper, wondering if she is using divine protection embroidery. Threads of light extend from her fingers, forming patterns like vines and leaves that spread gracefully across the fabric. Before their eyes, the embroidery settles into place, transforming the stained area and altering the dress entirely. Evie exhales quietly as she realizes she has finished successfully. The crowd breaks into murmurs, astonished by what they just witnessed. Some say it looked like magic and question whether she is truly from the Naley family. Others whisper that her skill seems even greater than that of the current head. Among them, one man clenches his fist in anger and demands to know who that little girl is, unable to believe what he has seen. Hania's eyes fill with tears as she thanks Evie sincerely, saying she never imagined a miracle like this could happen and that she has never seen divine protection embroidery like it before. She then asks if Evie might be the reincarnation of the first head of the House of Naley, and realizes she does not even know her name. Evie introduces herself politely and adds that she is Urjit's seamstress maiden. The crowd quickly gathers around them, voices overlapping as they demand to know what just happened. They stare at the transformed dress and ask if that girl just altered it using divine protection embroidery. They can hardly believe what they witnessed. Some whisper that her power seems comparable to that of the founding ancestor of the Naley family. Others repeat that she called herself only a seamstress maiden and question who she truly is. Hania looks at Evie and asks if she is the fiancée of the former king. Evie, surprised, asks how she knew. Hania explains that seamstress maiden is a title granted to someone proposed by a member of the royal family. With such mastery over divine protection embroidery and such a sincere heart, it is no wonder the former king favors her. Hania thanks Evie once again for restoring the dress. Evie answers modestly that the spirits helped her greatly and shared their power with her. Hania expresses her gratitude to the spirits as well, but she also feels apologetic that they and the king had to use their magic on her behalf. She says she wishes to offer thanks and give something in return, yet spirits can only receive objects that possess magical power. Evie suggests that she could create something enchanted and imbued with divine protection embroidery so that the spirits would be able to accept it. Hania asks if she is certain, and Evie assures her it is fine. Hania apologizes again and gently takes Evie's hand, asking her to use her magic. Evie nods in understanding and weaves her magic once more, forming delicate lace flowers for the spirits and for the king. Hania admires the intricate flowers and thanks Evie sincerely before presenting them to the spirits. At that moment, a maid approaches and announces that she carries a message from the king. He will soon arrive in the throne room with his father for the soiree, and Hania is requested to make her way there at once. Hania smiles and says she will go and personally deliver the flowers to the king. Hania runs toward the throne room, and those watching remark that her expression is far brighter than before. Evie agrees softly, saying she cannot believe Hania has such a beautiful smile and that she looks especially cute whenever the king is involved. It is clear that Hania loves him with all her heart. As the eldest daughter of the Fulk family, a line of technical aristocrats, she was born and raised in a remote fief and had never once left her homeland. Royal life had always felt distant and unreachable to her. But 6 years ago, everything changed when an incident led her to meet the king for the first time. He had asked her if she was Hania, and she answered yes. At that time, her family had fallen into ruin. Her gentle mother had become ill and passed away, and her father, overwhelmed with grief, lost the will to continue. Her 13-year-old brother secretly took responsibility for managing the estate in their father's place, but he could not hold it together for long. Relatives who coveted her father's wealth introduced him to a second wife. That stepmother, together with those same relatives, conspired to seize control. They confined her father and brother and took over the manor. Within a single year, the Fulk family lost most of its fortune. During that dark period, a man and a woman came to see her. The man introduced himself as Rodan Calistolia. Though Hania herself was not locked away, she had been separated from her brother and left isolated. They apologized for arriving so suddenly and said they had come to see her brother. They showed her a letter written in code, explaining that it was from him. It revealed that the stepmother had imprisoned him and unlawfully seized his property, and that she had threatened to harm Hania if he resisted. They told her they were aware of his situation and that they were his friends from school. Hania looked up at them and asked if they were truly her brother's friends, and they assured her they were there to help. As promised, they returned with a large army and rescued her brother. He immediately expelled the stepmother and those who had conspired with her from the villa. To comfort their devastated father, he vowed that the family would unite and rebuild their house together. With tears in her eyes, Hania bowed deeply and thanked the two of them, saying her family had been restored because of their help. She confessed that she had feared they would not survive. One of them gently patted her head and told her that she had endured everything alone until now, but it was all right now. After that, they began visiting from time to support the rebuilding of the Fulk family. Over time, they grew closer and formed a deep bond. She was still only a child then, and she did not yet understand everything. For a long time she wondered why her brother had sought help from boys who were still so young themselves, and how they were able to bring so many soldiers to their aid. Later, she learned Am's true identity. As the years passed and they continued spending time together, they spoke openly and honestly, and eventually she began to see him not as the distant royal he was, but as a man. Now, in the throne room, she spots him. He calls out to her, saying he kept her waiting. He apologizes for leaving her alone and asks if she is all right. She steps toward him and assures him she is fine, explaining that the seamstress maiden he sent helped her. He says he is relieved she is safe and tells her the dress looks wonderful on her. She then offers him the lace flower, explaining that he shared his magic so her new dress could be completed, and in return Evie made this for him. He thanks her and says it is a beautiful ornament, fastening it to his cloak. The moment he does, it begins to glow. He looks down in surprise, unsure what is happening. Flames suddenly flicker from the flower crafted with divine protection embroidery. She wonders if new embroidery has formed on his cloak. Even the king is visibly astonished. The cloak had already been reinforced with divine protection embroidery, and now, adorned with flowers made from the same art, it seems to radiate even greater protection. The magical power is overwhelming. The king turns to Arjit and asks if this is her ability. Arjit answers yes, saying that divine protection embroidery holds immense potential and that one day she will become Kikufu's guardian and the one who saves this country. Hania remarks that she believed the change in leadership of the Naley family would require a separate formal announcement, but it seems this moment is enough. The king then calls for the crowd's attention. He declares that 6 months from now, in the spring, he will marry Hania Fulk of the Fulk family. He adds that he has another announcement. In light of the miracle they have all just witnessed, in the name of King Kremesto Metru, Evie Naley will be officially recognized for her marriage to the former King Arjit. As of this day, he appoints Evie as the new head of the Nil family. She had been raised from birth as the heir to the Naley family. From a young age she learned the techniques of divine protection embroidery, and as the current head she had preserved her family's standing for the sake of the country. The continued existence of the House of Naley was due to her efforts. The king announces that as of today he appoints Evie as the new head of the House of Naley. At once, the Duke, who is also Evie's father and the current head of the family, steps forward and demands to know what kind of joke this is. Evie calls out to her father, but he tells her it is fine. He says he understands the announcement is sudden, yet claims that those present simply do not recognize her true ability, and that only those who lack judgment or feel threatened would object. The Duke stares at Evie in disbelief. He recalls that she is named Evie and wonders if she could be the eldest daughter he once sold to Roden. Yet she looks nothing like the girl he remembers, and above all, that daughter had never been capable of performing divine protection embroidery. He cannot understand who this girl truly is or why someone else would try to take his position as head of the family. He calls out to the king and asks him to wait, stating firmly that he is the head of the Naley family. If the king expects him to hand over his house to this young girl, he cannot accept it. Evie's wrist trembles slightly at his words. The king replies that since he is a member of the Naley family, he should know the rule: the one with the greatest skill is the most qualified to lead. The Duke answers that of course he knows this, which is why he has remained head. The king then challenges him to prove it here and now, just as Evie has done. He is to present a work of divine protection embroidery that surpasses hers. If he truly is more capable and the more suitable leader, he should be able to demonstrate it. The Duke clenches his fist and argues that he did not bring his spider with him today, but given time he could certainly create embroidery superior to this. He urges the king not to make such a rash decision. The king questions what he means by rash. Arjit places a hand on the king's shoulder and says it is all right. He proposes that they grant the Duke a chance. At a later date, he must submit a piece of divine protection embroidery. If it surpasses Evie's work, the title of head will be returned to him. However, if he fails to exceed her skill, he will never again return to the House of Naley. Arjit then pulls Evie close and lifts her into his arms. He fixes the Duke, her father, with a cold glare and says he believes the matter is perfectly clear. Arjit looks at the Duke and asks if he truly believes he can easily defeat the seamstress maiden. The Duke's face twists with anger as he demands to know how he could be humiliated like this. He strides toward the king, but the royal guards immediately block his path and order him to stay back. He begins shouting curses as the guard sees him. While being dragged away, he yells that this is not over and swears he will reclaim the house of Nayli from her. Evie watches him with visible unease. Arjit remarks coldly that he never expected such a man to be the head of the Nayli family. Even the king sighs, calling it a pitiful sight. Arjit then turns to Evie and gently tells her that it is time to end the party and return home. She hesitates and quietly asks about her father, but Arjit reassures her that resistance is normal when a family head changes and promises that he will protect her from now on. He tells her that her display of divine protection embroidery tonight was a masterpiece and that the events of this party will surely be remembered in the country's history. The next morning, Evie wakes to Malachi cheerfully wishing her good morning. She startles slightly at the sudden presence, and Stahl scolds Malachi for entering without knocking, reminding her that she had been told to do so. Malachi apologizes, saying she simply could not wait to see Evie's face. Evie smiles and greets them both. She recalls how much happened the night before and feels as though it was all a dream, though somehow everything ended well. Malachi tells her she will bring breakfast immediately and adds that the king wishes to see her at the morning briefing once she is ready. Evie asks about the briefing, and Malachi explains that everyone will be present as the king wants to discuss the future. Later, Evie arrives with Arjit and Hania. The king thanks them for attending the party and says that despite a series of unexpected events, they were able to successfully announce both the engagement and the change in leadership of the Nayli family. He then addresses Evie directly, acknowledging that the sudden declaration of her as head must have surprised her and offering an apology. He informs her that the former head of the Nayli family, the Duke, is under investigation for the theft of Hania's dress and that the estate is currently under supervision. He tells her not to worry. Evie lowers her head and apologizes for her father's rudeness. She also apologizes to Hania for the trouble her sister caused and asks for forgiveness. Hania looks startled and asks what she is apologizing for, telling her it was not her fault. She adds that Evie even sewed her a new dress overnight as an apology and that she loves it because it resembles her ball gown. The two exchange warm smiles, and Arjit quietly observes how close they have become. He then says that now the evening party is over, it is time to discuss what lies ahead. Arjit says he would like to proceed with the matter as soon as possible, stating that they should carry out Evie's master contract immediately, and Evie looks visibly surprised while he explains that this is the ritual required for her to become the official head of the Nayli family. Within the castle there exists a contract made between the first head of the Nayli family and the spider, and whenever the head changes, that contract must be rewritten in the presence of the king, and considering what happened with her father yesterday, it is better for her to take over the reins without delay, to which the king agrees, adding that as he told her before, once she signs the master contract her magical power will increase and it may then become possible to heal Kokufu, something Arjit confirms, while Hania, surprised and hopeful, asks if that is truly so and tells Evie how amazing it would be because Kokufu is the Holy Spirit who protects their country and saving such a being would be extraordinary. Evie grows quiet, staring down at her hands as doubt fills her, wondering if she can truly accomplish something so great, and when Arjit notices her troubled expression and asks what is wrong and whether she has any concerns, she admits that although she says it is nothing, she cannot help but question whether Kokufu is not an incredibly powerful spirit, and Arjit answers that she is indeed powerful, that she protects the entire land with her magic and that it is because of her protection that their country remains safe from outside invasion, and that she is a precious spirit created by the founder of the House of Nayli, which makes Evie think even more deeply, realizing that simply increasing her magic may not be enough to heal such a strong existence. Recalling how at the party while repairing Hania's dress she understood that divine protection embroidery has always required not only her own magic but also the cooperation of many spirits, and so, feeling nervous, she apologizes to Arjit and confesses that she does not believe she can cure Kokufu so easily, that even becoming head of the family and signing the contract may not be sufficient, causing murmurs to spread through the room as she explains that while divine protection embroidery requires magical power, what matters most is whether the user can share that power with the spirits, and that Kokufu herself must have been created with the help of many spirits, meaning that to heal her completely they must not only restore the burns on her right arm but also repair and restretch the gown she wears so that it resembles as closely as possible the original gown made by the founder, and to do that they would need a spirit as powerful as the one involved in its creation, something she cannot accomplish alone, so she bows her head and asks everyone for their help in finding such spirits, leaving the king and the others taken aback while Arjit smiles faintly, understanding that her reasoning makes sense because a holy spirit like Kokofu could not be healed so easily, and when the king remarks that Kokofu's dress is a masterpiece created through generations of spirits and wonders what kind of spirit could be powerful enough to have been involved in its making, Evie admits she does not know and says they will need to seek out several high-ranking spirits and gather information, to which Arjit responds that he believes her judgment is correct and that they will find those spirits and, when they do, they will be able to heal Kokofu, adding that he looks forward to working with her and calling her seamstress Marion, making her smile and thank him before he reminds her that the road ahead will be long but that first they must complete the formalities by going to the vault where the contracts are kept and begin signing the new master contract. The founder of House Noor had an interesting backstory. She was the daughter of the first king of Lomastemetho Kingdom. She brought her family great joy, but not for long. The baby girls fell victim to kidnappers who abandoned her in the labyrinth, a den of monsters. The king desperately tried to find his daughter, but that search was difficult. Months turned to years with no results. Miraculously, several years after the girl's abduction, the king found his daughter deep in the labyrinth. A spider, normally a feared monster, had been caring for her. The girl and the beastly spider had forged a strong bond. The king did not want to forcefully separate them, so he permitted them to meet. Some time later, the girl grew up, and her talents blossomed. She married into the Noor family, becoming its head. After making a pact with the spider, she completed the Reamweave Guardian's tapestry. The monster who came to be known as the founder spider was her inseparable companion throughout her life. Arjid tells her the legend of the founder of Noor, a story passed down for generations in their land. Minachi gasps. She says so the Noor founder was of royal blood, does that mean Lady Ivy is too? Before anyone can answer, she throws her arms around Ivy and says she should have guessed that is where she gets her cuteness from. Stahl has to physically pull Minachi away from her. Ivy then admits that story is different from the picture book she read when she was little. Arjid nods. He tells her she probably read a version adopted for children. It is a fact that she has a close link to the founder's spider. That spider on her shoulder is descended from the founder's, or more precisely, it is a clone of that spider. Ivy stares at the little spider in her palm. She looks at the spider in disbelief and whispers, a clone. Arjid replies yes, Noor spiders do not look like monsters, but they are all descended from the founder's spider, and the offspring of monsters inherit all of their parents' traits. Her spider is the same organism as the founder's. Her eyes stay fixed on it. She thinks this little one is a clone of the founder's spider. The original spider saved her ancestor and stayed by her side for life. She cannot help but wonder what that spider was like. Arjid steps forward and gestures at the large door ahead and tells her that this is the vault and tells her to come inside. Once inside, a man is already waiting. The magical advisor places a hand over his chest and greets them respectfully, saying he has been waiting for them. He introduces himself as the magical advisor to the royal army. His name is Tayuamia. He tells them it is a pleasure to meet them. Nervous, she blurts, pleased to meet him too. His Majesty explains that Tayuamia is their chief magician. He supervises all magical forces in the army. The pact rewriting ritual has a magic element to it, which is why he invited an expert to join them. The magical advisor bows and says he's happy to help. Ivy bows even lower. She says thank you very much. Then the original pact between the founder of Noor and her spider is brought out. Stahl stares at it and murmurs, is this the pact? He leans closer. The fabric is old, but there is blessed woven thread in it. Arjid says, the pact was written over 2,000 years ago. House Noor has a long history. The king steps forward and says, shall they begin the ritual? Calling Ivy over, he tells her to place her spider on the magic symbol. She carefully places the spider on the circle-shaped symbol. The moment it touches, the pact glows. Words begin appearing around the magic symbol. Written, the black-haired maiden Sakura hereby pledged to be bound by ties of friendship to the spider maiden forever and ever. The king tells Ivy, this text is an ancient script. The declaration appears to be a normal contract. However, no one has been able to decipher the part that comes after Spider Maiden. She stares at it. She thinks, so no one knows how to read it. Arjid adds, indeed, they can guess that it is the name of the spider, but it has been written in a foreign script, the likes of which they have never seen before. Ivy keeps staring. A foreign script. For some reason, it stirs something inside her. A name written in a script nobody here can read. Why does it feel so familiar? Then her eyes widen. The name Sakura clicks in her mind. Of course. Her ancestor's name, Sakura. A name she had never heard in this world. The one who wrote this pact, maybe she is. Ivy steps closer. She asks if she can take a closer look at the pact. When she sees it properly, her breath catches. She murmurs, unbelievable. She had been wrong. She was reborn here with memories of her past life. She thought she was the only one. But she can read the spider's name. It is written in Japanese. It was not just her after all. Someone else came from another world. And that someone was the Nur founder's spider. The king notices her shaken expression. He asks her what is the matter, is she okay? She replies, she is fine. He mistakes it for nerves and tells her no need to worry, she doesn't need to be able to read the pact to rewrite it. Then the king tells her to please put her hand on the pact and repeat after him. He says, he pledges his everlasting friendship and she repeats after him, to you and all fairy kind, O spider maiden. Her eyes stay wide. She had spent so much time trying to survive in this world that she had almost forgotten her past life. The Japanese characters must have been left for someone like her. If she says the spider's name, maybe she will finally learn what she needs to know. Taking a breath, she speaks. O spider maiden, Ariadne, this is her pact with her. The moment the name leaves her lips, a huge light bursts from the pact, swallowing the room in white. She flinches, wondering what is this light. The knights immediately start murmuring among themselves. If she just said Ariadne. Shock spreads across their faces. She managed to read the divine spider's name. Toluemia's voice cuts through the noise. He sharply calls out to everyone and tells them to back away from the pact immediately. He will conjure a barrier. Arjit moves first, rushing straight to Ivy. He grabs her arm and tells her to come here, they must step outside the barrier. But suddenly, all of them start floating. Arjit quickly tells Toluemia to close the barrier. As long as she is with them, they are safe. Toluemia nods at once and says, His Highness as you wish, and immediately casts the barrier. In the next instant, the light vanishes. The room falls dim and silent again. The men left behind look around in disbelief. What just happened? The king is gone. His Highness, Arjit, and Lady Ivy as well. Are they trapped inside the barrier? Toluemia faces the others and explains the magical advisor tells them they are not in danger. That magic was activated by calling the divine beast's name. The divine beast summoned them to her realm. His Highness said they are safe as long as they have the lady with them, which means he is certain that the divine beast will not hurt allies of the person she has made a pact with. All they can do is patiently await their return. Meanwhile, Ivy slowly opens her eyes. She looks around, confused. The bright light had forced her to shut them. But when she opened them again she was here. Nothing but white in every direction. She looks around in surprise, wondering where is she and where is His Highness and then the others. They were just beside her. But after that flash, she has to find them. A voice suddenly speaks behind her. Someone asks her in Japanese, was it you who called my name? She turns around sharply and freezes. Standing before her is a giant pure white spider. No, not a monster. More like a goddess. She asks her if she is her ancestor spider, Ariadne. The spider's eyes brighten. In the next second, she excitedly pulls Ivy closer. The spider quickly pulls her excitedly and says correct, she's so happy she knows about her. In fact, she knew about her too. Her voice sounds cheerful. She says, she's the seamstress girl, right? Like her, she lived in Japan in her past life, and now she is in the process of becoming the head of House Nur. Ivy stares at her, stunned. Ivy asks her how did she know all that. Ariadne giggles and replies, because she has a pact with her. Besides, she knows many things, such as this world's mechanics and why both of them ended up being reborn here. Then she says, the truth is, she has been long awaiting her call, and she says she shall give her the answers to all her questions. Ivy stares at her and says all her questions. Ariadne confirms that despite her youthful appearance, she has lived for 2,000 years. By a twist of fate, she is reborn as a monster, and because of that, she knows many things that ordinary humans do not. She says she understands Ivy's uncertainty over her sudden rebirth into this world because she once experiences the same confusion herself. For a long time, she has yearned to speak with another transmigrant. She tells Ivy that she wishes to help her and asks what she wants to know, assuring her that she may ask anything. Then, with an evil glint in her eyes, she softly suggests if Ivy would like to know how to exact revenge on the Nurs who tormented her. She offers all her knowledge to Ivy and urges her not to hold back, telling her to simply ask. Ivy hesitates and asks if she truly means that Ivy can ask anything. The woman smiles and confirms that she means exactly that. After a brief pause, Ivy says that what she wants to know is where Her Highness and the others have disappeared to. She admits that deciding to call out her name in the middle of the ritual is selfish. It is her own fault that she becomes separated from her companions. And if something happens to them, that too will be her responsibility. She says she has to make sure they are safe. So she asks the woman to tell her where to find them, explaining that they are deeply important to her. The woman studies Ivy's face for a moment. Just as she expects, Ivy is the type of person who puts others before herself. Still, she tells her there is no need to worry. She assures Ivy that they have not come to harm. She explains that she has sent them to the labyrinth beneath the palace. Realization strikes Ivy at once. That labyrinth is the very place where the founder of Nur is abandoned. A place known as a nest of monsters. She quickly asks why she would send them there. Ariadne tells her there is no need for panic. She explains that they are armed, and their lives are not in danger. Besides, she says she has a small task for them. Until they complete it, she cannot bring them back. Elsewhere, Stahl slashes through a monster with her weapon and immediately checks on the king and his majesty, asking if they are unharmed. Minachi complains that first they are dragged into some strange dimension, and now monsters are attacking them from every direction. He demands to know where the hell they even are. Arjid looks around and says he suspects that this is the labyrinth beneath the palace, the very same place where the founder is once raised by the spider. Minak reacts in surprise and asks if there is truly a labyrinth beneath the palace. Arjid confirms that there is, explaining that the first king built his palace directly above it. It was done this way so that the king's daughter could visit her spider mother freely. The king admits that he has heard about the labyrinth before, of course, but never imagines it to be so full of monsters. He says they need to find a way out soon. They can only keep fighting off monsters for so long. Arjid agrees that it is true, but his thoughts remain on Ivy. He says he is worried about her. Stahl admits that she feels the same. She says they have to find her. Minachi adds that Ivy might be attacked by monsters and urges everyone to hurry. The king turns to his fiancée and reminds her that she is the only one unarmed, telling her to stay close behind him. She smiles at that and asks if he truly expects her to hide behind his back. Then, with a snap of her fingers, she reveals the slit of her dress, exposing the hidden weapon strapped to her thigh. She tells him that this is where he is wrong. This is exactly what she has been studying martial arts for. She declares that she will be the one protecting him and tells him to walk closely behind her instead. Arjid teases his son, saying that he is in safe hands. The king looks embarrassed and quickly shifts the conversation, saying that in any case, they should focus on finding Mother first and then look for the exit. There is only one way forward from here. They have no choice but to go farther into the labyrinth. Minachi suddenly bursts with excitement and declares that she is coming to save the princess. Stahl calls after her, warning her not to run off on her own. Arjid doesn't understand what exactly is going on here. Without a doubt, it was the founder's spider who separated them from Ivy and threw them into the labyrinth. But for what purpose? Could she have put them inside a tunnel with only one way to go because she wants to lead them to something specific? If his hunch is correct, the founder's spider wouldn't let them find Ivy without a challenge. On the other hand, Ariadne tells Ivy that they have plenty of time, so there is no need to rush. She suggests that they try talking a little and asks why they do not reminisce about their lives in Japan. She had a sob when she thought about it. Ivy looks like she doesn't know how to console and softly says sorry. But she simply tells her to call her Arya. Ivy says that what she truly wants is for Arya to take her to her friends because they need her help. But Arya immediately refuses. She says she does not think that is necessary. She questions how Ivy plans to fight monsters with nothing but a needle and thread. Besides, she says she has her own objectives to pursue. If Ivy has any other questions, she should ask them now while she still has the chance. Ivy falls silent and thinks she has too many to count, like what is this world exactly? And why did she transmigrate here? But her most pressing question would be she wants to know how she can heal the realm Weave Guardian. Ivy admits that she has been trying to heal the Guardian but all their attempts were in vain. She explains that if nothing is done, the curse will continue spreading through her body until it consumes her entirely. She says she would do anything to save her, but she has no idea how. If Arya knows a way, Ivy asks her to tell her. She explains that she made a promise that she will protect the Guardian no matter what. Arya's expression softens at her words. She says that Ivy is strong. Even after being reborn into an entirely different world, Ivy does not cling to the memories of her past and instead keeps her eyes fixed on the future. Arya admits that for herself, that was impossible. She explains that Sakura and she combined their souls to create that girl, the Guardian. In a way, she says, Ivy could even call the Guardian their child. Because of that, she is deeply grateful that Ivy cares for her so much. As a monster, Arya says she is unable to heal her herself. But she can tell Ivy what must be done. She pleads with Ivy to help her daughter. Ivy immediately promises that she will. Arya tells her that there are 2 steps to saving the Guardian. First, since her right arm and the corresponding tapestry cannot be healed, she must cut them off. Next, she must recreate that part of the tapestry with bless weaving. Ivy jumps back in fright and blurts she wants her to cut her arm off. Arya tells her not to worry, the Guardian will be fully healed when she restores the tapestry. That said, she is not sure her spider isn't yet at the right level for this. She can probably tell that the Weave Guardian's tapestry requires the very finest technique. Besides the fairies, she will also need spider silk imbued with powerful magic. Here the spider cannot produce adequate silk, and the tapestry is currently impossible for her. Things not that, her case is falling, but Arya tells her not to lose hope. What her spider lacks is experience, just like one spider becomes stronger by gaining experience. It was only recently that she started weaving with her spider's silk, right? She tells her to continue to bless weave garments and the magic in her spider silk will gradually increase. It is something she must achieve through perseverance. Next point about cutting off her first part, as she might have guessed, regular tools like scissors or knives wouldn't work. She must either get a wind fairy to help her or do it herself with a magic sword of the wind attribute. She repeats, a magic sword? Arya says, yes, in other words, a sword imbued with magical power. There are other liverings besides the one underneath this palace. That is where magic swords are usually found. I'll advise her to try to get her hands on a wind sword. Wind fairies are notoriously difficult to find since they are transparent. Her mouth hangs open as she thinks transparent. These are invisible fairies. She then tells her now she knows how to heal the Guardian. Ivy thinks, okay, so what she needs to do is increase the magic capacity of her spider silk and find either a wind fairy or a magic sword to cut off the Guardian's first arm. Neither sounds easy, but at least part of it is down to hard work alone. She has to tell His Highness about this as soon as possible. Arya suddenly says, oops, she almost forgot to mention something very important. When she severs the Guardian's cursed arm, it will immediately turn into a monster. At the moment, she is suppressing the curse with her own power, but once the curse is separated from her, it will take on a life of its own and attack people, which means while she is repairing the tapestry, she will need to fight the curse-born monster at the same time. Ivy thinks in shock, blessed weaving is one thing, but fighting a monster too? Can she even do that? Arya says anyway, that is not something for her to lose sleep over. She looks at her in surprise and asks what does she mean. She teases her, calling her silly, reminding her she's a seamstress, it is not her job to fight, someone else is obligated to protect her. And who could that be but her fiancé? On the other hand, the group reaches a dead end. Minachi points out that Lady Ivy is nowhere in sight. Arjad looks around and confirms that it indeed seems so, adding that they should investigate the situation carefully in case there is a hidden route. Before he can continue, he pauses as an unfamiliar sound echoes through the darkness. Something moves in the shadows. Then a woman emerges, calling out Arjad's name like a melody. Her head tilts unnaturally to one side, hair flying around wildly. Her expression is twisted into an unsettling smile. Arjad stiffens in shock and blurts what that monstrosity is. On the other hand, Arya tells Ivy, it falls to her companions to fight the monster. Her efforts will be in vain if they prove to be too weak. So for her, she is going to test them a little. She admits right now, she is pitting her friends against a part of the curse corrupting the realms we've guardian. The monster suddenly turns toward Minak and attacks. She is sent flying backward but manages to land on her feet. Arjid calls out to her in alarm, but she immediately reassures him that she is fine. She then looks at the creature again, her eyes widening. She starts to say that the monster looks like, but Arjid cuts her off, his gaze sharpening. He confirms that, as monstrous as it appears, he would recognize that face anywhere. It has taken the form of the former queen, Lestlana. Meanwhile, Ivy asks Arya in a quiet voice why she needs to test her companions. She questions why they are being forced to face a fragment of the curse, insisting that they should not be dragged into something like this now. Arya tells her to calm down, explaining that there is a reason for everything. To be clear, she says, it is not Ivy's fault. She reminds Ivy that she attempted to heal the Guardian the day before. Ivy confirms that she did, explaining that she wove a glove for her and managed to heal only the tip of her little finger. Arya acknowledges the effort but explains that, as she said before, the Guardian can only be healed by severing the cursed portion. In other words, Ivy's attempt did not fully heal her. Instead, what she achieved was scattering a small fragment of the curse. It did not disappear after healing that finger, it remained near the Realmweave Guardian. With time, it would have reinfected the same wound again. So Arya collected that fragment and gave it form, turning it into a monster. She then guided Ivy's companions toward it so they could destroy it. She also admits that she wanted to test their strength. She explains that this is also the most efficient way to eliminate the cursed fragment. Ivy falls silent, thinking her companions are now fighting a dangerous monster because of her failure to fully heal the Guardian. Arya seems to notice her thoughts and gently tells her not to blame herself, reminding her that she was listening when it was said that none of this is her fault. She softly pats Ivy's head and instead tells her to place the blame where it belongs. The former queen who cursed the Guardian. And the people of this land who allowed her presence. She adds bluntly that they should have annihilated the queen's homeland when they had the chance. Ivy panics at the word, repeating it in shock. Arya, however, responds dryly that it was only amusing, she should pay it no mind. She adds that dealing with a monster born from a fully manifested curse is far more difficult, such a creature would be tens of times stronger than the fragment they are facing now. The monster surges forward again, striking at Arjid with brutal force. He blocks with his sword just in time, but the impact rattles through his arms, making his grip tremble. He grits his teeth as the creature keeps calling his name in a warped, repeating voice, its distorted smile widening as it claims it has missed him. Arjid steps back, his expression tightening. The king immediately calls out, stating that the monster is far stronger than the ones they have faced before. Arjid responds that, regardless of its strength, they must defeat it if they want any chance of finding Ivy. The king agrees, though uneasily, and says she is not real Lestlana, is she? Isn't she being kept in captivity abroad? Arjid confirms that is correct. He concludes this is a manifestation of her curse, noting that the sinister aura isn't unfamiliar to him. Whatever it is, he says, they must bring it down. He then instructs Minachi to create an opening by distracting it. Minachi immediately leaps into the air, weapon ready. At the same moment, Stahl also moves in, but before she can strike, strands of the monster's hair whip out violently and seize her midair. Minachi shouts a warning just in time. Both of them manage to land safely. Stahl admits she owes Minachi for the warning, while Minachi points out how close that was. She adds grimly that things are not looking good, especially as the hair is now creeping up toward the cavern ceiling. They are completely surrounded. There is nowhere left to run. Suddenly, Arjid shouts, ordering Amonart to take the others and retreat the way they came. He says clearly that the monster is after him. Amonart refuses, insisting he cannot leave his father behind. Arjid counters that he also cannot die here with him, reminding him that he is the king and must survive. Before the argument can continue, Hania steps forward and asks for permission to handle the situation. The king demands if she has a plan. Hania responds that if it is truly only hair, then it can burn. She calls upon the flame fairy and requests her power. Flames erupt and latch onto the monster's hair, and the creature lets out a piercing scream. The king notes that it is working and asks if she can finish it. Hania answers no, her power is just enough to keep her out of reach with the flames. She explains that the hair has already spread all over the cave, and if any of it escapes, she will attack again. Arjun concludes grimly that they cannot win unless they deal direct damage to its core, but they still cannot even get close enough. Minachi adds that they need to destroy all the hair at once, but Stall and she are not magically gifted enough. The king states that his green fairy's plant magic isn't geared toward battle. He doesn't think there is anything. At that moment, the fairies suddenly join hands, catching everyone's attention. A burst of light erupts into the darkness, illuminating the cave. The light comes from the blessed woven flowers Ivy had created for them. They cannot believe it. The flowers allow their magic to synchronize and combine. Hania looks at it in awe, realizing that together their power has multiplied. She calls forth thorn vines of flame, commanding them to burn through the monster's hair all at once. Suddenly, Arjun moves behind the creature. He calls out to it, addressing it as Lestlana, and says he failed to give her a peaceful life in his kingdom. He regrets that to this day. But now, Ivy flashes through his mind and he says he must move forward, no matter what. With that, he drives his sword down. The creature screams his name, asking why, but a flash of light erupts across the cave, swallowing everything. Meanwhile, Arya pauses before murmuring that it was quicker than expected. Ivy immediately asks what she means. Arya replies that her companions have defeated the monster. She notes that it looked dangerous for a moment, but in the end, they managed to pass the test. Ivy's features light up as she realizes they succeeded. Arya shrugs and says they still wouldn't stand a chance against the full curse. They need to get stronger, but they successfully defeated this monster, so she will send them back to the castle. She shouldn't keep her any longer either. Ivy understands that this means it is time to say goodbye. But before she can speak, Arya gently tells her that there is something she wants to say before she leaves. In her past life, she got the job she always wanted, but fate cut her happy future short. As if it couldn't get any worse, she was reborn here as a monster. Every day of this life has been painful. She knows that she too has suffered in this world, but she's glad to have met her. She pulls into a hug and admits she is thankful for her rebirth into this world. If she were to finally die and be reborn yet again, she would like to be reborn as her child. She then says it seems the time has come. Now she is the head of house and you are. And tells her to follow the path that seems right to her. Remember, she will always be watching over her through her spider's eyes. Ivy says thank you as she starts disappearing. And things, after meeting Arya and talking to her about the future, that she realized something. Since her rebirth, she has just been going with the flow, powerless, unable to make any choices for herself. But no more of that. His Highness calls out to her as she floats in the air and pulls her into his arms. She thinks to herself that from now on, she will decide what happens in her life. She softly mumbles in his arms that she missed him for a moment. At first he looks shocked, but then he closes his eyes and says he also missed her. The others around them welcome her back as well. She thinks there are people in her life she wants to protect, without always relying on others. On the other hand, her father is in his room throwing things around and cursing. He asks what is going on and why he cannot get a blessing. He says his magic feels weaker than before. He wonders if it is because that woman took his title. He is frustrated that this is happening now, especially when he has something important to work on. Just then, the maid knocks on the door and tells him he has a guest. He yells at her, saying he told her he is busy and to send them away. But before she can leave, the guest walks in anyway. They say they were expecting a warmer welcome for such a rare visit. His eyes widen and he asks what they are doing there. The guest replies calmly that they thought he might need the help of a fameancer again. You are now the head of House Noor, Ivy. Follow the path that seems right to you. Arya's soft voice keeps reverberating in her head. As she sleeps in her bed, the little fairies float gently around her. After a while, she stirs and slowly sits up, noticing them. She asks if they have come to wake her up and greets them with a soft good morning. Then she turns toward her spider and also wishes him a good morning. It was the morning after her meeting with Arya. The ritual did not exactly go as expected. It caused quite a commotion at the palace, but she did manage to rewrite the pact in her. It is only now that the realization is sinking in. It is true, she has really become the head of House Noor. Also it is true she has really become the head of House Noor, also it's entirely on her to heal the realm we've guardian. She pauses and surprised, little fairy starts clinging to her. She asks them if they are showing their support and thanks them softly. Now that she thinks about it, her magic should be strong now that she is the head of her house. She wonders how it will affect her glass weaving. She decides to try it out. On the other hand, Minachi walks through the corridor carrying a tray of tea and lets out a long sigh. Stahl notices it and points out that she is not usually the type to sigh like that, asking what is on her mind. Minachi admits she is worried about Lady Ivy. Stahl asks why, reminding her that the pact has been rewritten. Minachi says that is exactly what worries her. She is officially the head of her house now, but she is sure her family will not let this slide. She managed to escape them once, but now they are going to hunt her down again. On top of that, she feels useless for how things went during the fight against the curse. She had promised Lady Ivy that she would always protect her, and now she feels like she has gone back on her word. Stahl admits it is true that they showed weakness during the battle, but reminds her that Lady Ivy is going to face even greater threats ahead. Their duty is to support her in every step she takes. She snaps at Minachi not to spread negativity, saying it will only worry Lady Ivy unnecessarily. Minachi says she is right. When she enters the room, she quickly switches to a bright smile, greeting Ivy cheerfully and announcing that she has brought tea. But she freezes the moment she looks inside. The floor is covered with scattered items and lots of clothes. She immediately asks what happened here. Ivy apologizes and explains that she was testing whether her magic had grown stronger. She says she started blessed weaving and found it difficult to stop. She adds that she made night robes for both Minachi and Stahl as a thank you for taking care of her. She explains that now that she is the head of the house, she may need even more of their support, and she wants them to know how grateful she is. Minachi looks like she might cry at any moment and says she will follow Ivy wherever she goes. Stahl quietly thinks they were wrong about Ivy, she is far stronger than they expected. Minachi then snaps out of it and says she will go bring breakfast, asking if there is anything else Ivy needs. Ivy hesitates before saying she has one request. She asks Minachi to deliver a message to King Amonart, saying she would like to see the Guardian again. Minachi pauses and repeats she wants to see the Guardian. Ivy explains that she has to, because just before Arya sent her back, she gave her something for the Guardian. She recalls Arya handing her a beautiful ribbon and asking if it was pretty. Ivy had answered that it was very beautiful, saying she had never seen blessed weaving so refined before. Arya had explained that it was made by Sakura and was one of her treasures, something she wanted the Guardian to have. Ivy had been surprised and asked if she was really giving away something so precious. Arya had replied that the Guardian is suffering from the curse and she wanted her to have it as a reminder that Sakura and Arya are always thinking of her. Ivy had promised to deliver it. Later, in the throne room, after explaining everything, Ivy presents the ribbon. King Amonart studies it and calls it incredible, saying it is a gift from the founder spider. Arjid suddenly steps forward and tells everyone to wait, saying it looks more like an amulet. Ivy repeats the word amulet, confused. Arjid explains that amulets are objects imbued with divine power. Even an unremarkable item might one day become an amulet and suddenly gain extraordinary effects. It is impossible to tell what properties might inhabit an amulet. Some protect their owner from accidents and misfortune, while others curse anyone who touches them. Ivy jumps slightly at the word curse. The king quickly tells her that there is no need to worry, saying the ribbon carries a gentle aura and likely wards off evil. He says the Guardian will be pleased to receive it and encourages Ivy to give it to her personally. Ivy steps forward and kneels before the Guardian, saying she brings the gift along with Arya's best wishes. The Guardian gives a small smile. Ivy is momentarily surprised to see her smile. The Guardian slowly extends her cursed arm. Ivy smiles and ties the ribbon around her wrist. The Guardian pulls her hand to her chest, as if she already treasures it. Ivy watches her and thinks she looks very happy. She thinks fairy and monsters can love just like humans do. Outside, Arjid remarks that he never expected the Guardian to cherish something so deeply, and says he is grateful. Ivy thanks him for allowing her to deliver it and says she hopes this country will always remain a place where everyone can find happiness. The king replies that this is also his dream, and he will do everything he can as king to make it real. Arjid adds that he is honestly surprised, saying he never imagined the founder spider would send something like this. Royal records describe her as an avatar of wrath who destroyed anyone who threatened the Guardian or the founder's will. Minachi nervously smiles, saying she can totally imagine that side of her too. But she also admits Arya was kind and friendly when speaking with her. She says she wishes they had more time together and hopes they can meet her again one day. The king replies that perhaps they will. For now, he is simply glad she returned safely. Minachi whispers from behind, His Highness's relief was monumental. When she suddenly disappeared, he panicked like never before. She wishes she could have seen him. He fearlessly ran off ahead of them, leaving no stone unturned, looking for her. He was beside himself and worried. Stall. Snaps at her to shut up, she will hurt his pride. But then he grumbles, goodness, and tells her not to make fun of his reaction. Of course, he panicked, why wouldn't he? She is his fiancée, she's the person he must protect above all others. Ivy looks surprised and then apologizes softly for making him worry. He responds that he is the one who should apologize for not being there with her. He clears his throat and changes the subject, saying he wants to discuss their next plans. He asks her to remain in the palace for now. She looks at him in surprise and repeats that he wants her to stay. He explains that based on what the founder spider said, they will need either a wind fairy or a wind sword to cure the guardian. Ivy confirms that the sword is supposedly easier to find. Stall steps forward and adds that they already have a lead. It is located in the land owned by her family's house, Mini's, or more precisely, in the labyrinth beneath Menesmetlo. Ivy agrees that it sounds great, but then Stall hesitates. She points out that Menesmetlo is very far, and winter is approaching, making travel by carriage nearly impossible. It would take far too long. Arjit agrees and says they will need to plan carefully before moving. He asks for patience while he looks into possible options. Ivy agrees, thinking she should have considered the limitations of travel in this world. Unlike her previous world, there are no airplanes or high-speed trains here. She quietly wishes there was a way to travel long distances faster. Suddenly, Ivy pauses and calls out to His Highness. He asks what is wrong. She points to the center of the room and asks what that object is. He looks confused and says the room is empty, maintained by the palace clerk, and there is nothing there. She insists there is something in the center, a large podium-like structure. But no one else can see it. The girls can't see it either. Ivy feels her breath catch as she realizes something is wrong. She can see it as clear as the day and she senses something too, an air of mystery. It's definitely not just an empty room. Then, a voice interrupts. An elderly woman in a wheelchair appears and calmly says that it seems someone who can see it has finally arrived. She smiles at Ivy and says they should talk. Ivy stammers, unsure how to respond, while the old woman simply offers her a gentle smile. Arjit suddenly realizes who she is and blurts out that it is Kayana. He says it has been a while since he last saw her and asks if she has been keeping well. Kayana replies that she has been very well and thanks him for asking, adding that His Highness has not changed a bit. Ivy watches the exchange and thinks to herself that this old lady feels rather unusual. Arjit then turns to Ivy and introduces Kayana, explaining that she is the chief palace clerk and the one who oversees all court officials. Ivy freezes for a moment, realizing that Kayana is an important figure in the palace. She quickly introduces herself and says she is pleased to meet the clerk. Kayana acknowledges her and says she has heard all about Ivy. She tells Ivy that people call her the most talented bless weaver of the millennium. She adds that the Rodney boy had quite the eye to notice Ivy's talent before anyone else. Ivy blinks in surprise at hearing Rodney called a boy. Arjit explains that Kayana is Rodan's direct superior. Kayana adds that she has been an unforgiving mentor to him ever since he was just a fledgling. She then reveals that Rodan has told her about Ivy's former life and everything she endured. Kayana says Ivy has been through far too much. Now that she has become the head of her house, Kayana warns her that the road ahead will be filled with thorns. She tells Ivy not to hesitate to ask if there is ever anything she can help with. Ivy thinks to herself that Kayana reminds her a little of Rodney. She thanks her and says she is very kind. Arjit then asks Kayana about what she said earlier, that Ivy can see something only she can. He asks if there really is a podium in this room. Kayana confirms that there is. Ivy startles and asks if she can see it too. She clarifies that unfortunately, she cannot see it herself, but she knows exactly what Ivy is talking about. She explains that the object Ivy sees is a portal. It is a device meant for teleporting people and objects to distant places. Arjit repeats teleporting in shock. She nods and explains that portals were said to be created by gods in ancient times. They can be found hidden within labyrinths, and each one is connected to another, allowing instant travel between them. Kayana says that His Majesty Amonart has already told her that they are in a hurry to find a certain object. She suggests that using the portal would save them a great deal of time. Stahl thinks that it sounds too convenient to be real, but if it is true, it would make the trip to Menesmetlo much easier. Arjid points out that the portal is only visible to Ivy and asks how exactly they are supposed to use it. Ivy herself wonders why it is invisible to everyone else. The thought reminds her of yesterday. The Spider Pact, the name only she could read. Kayana turns to Ivy and says that all she can tell her is that only special people can use portals. Then she asks Ivy if she knows what makes her special. Ivy remembers that yesterday she managed to read a name on a spider pact that nobody else could because she is reincarnated from another world. She thinks that might be why she can see the portal and wonders if she is also able to use it. However, she worries about what will happen if she does something careless and they get separated again. She begins to apologize, thinking that she doesn't want to put her friends at risk. Kayana tells her she didn't mean to put pressure on her. She says she may use the portal if she wishes or choose not to. Kayana then reveals that for the time being, she can't use it anyway. Ivy blinks and asks what she means by that. Kayana smiles and says there is a small problem. The portal is currently out of order. The entire group shouts what? In disbelief. Kayana says it has probably not functioned for hundreds of years because no one has used it. Arjid lets out a sigh and says Kayana's name in exhaustion. He tells her she could have said that sooner instead of letting them discuss it all this time. Kayana chuckles and gives a small apology. But she tells them not to worry. The portal can be repaired. And she knows exactly who can repair it. Arjid looks surprised and asks if she really does. Ivy wonders if it is some kind of specialist engineer. Kayana suddenly calls out for Senri and tells her to come forward. From the corner, the maid lets out a startled squeak and quickly answers that she is coming. Ivy looks surprised when she realizes the person stepping forward is Kayana's maid. Kayana tells Senri to hurry and introduce herself properly. Senri gives them a bright smile and says she is pleased to meet everyone. She introduces herself as Senri and explains that she is related to Miss Kayana, who helped her get work at the palace. Senri awkwardly starts saying she should get going, but Kayana stops her immediately and says she is not going anywhere. Kayana explains that maintaining the portals has been her family's duty for generations. And Senri has inherited the knowledge needed to repair them. She tells everyone to leave it to Senri. Arjid nods and says that is excellent news. Then he admits he knows this is sudden, but asks if Senri could repair the portal as soon as possible. Senri bows deeply and apologizes, saying she cannot do it right now. Silence fills the room. Arjid asks if she truly cannot repair it. Senri explains that she can, but not without the proper tools. She admits that the tools are absurdly huge and far too big for her room, so she left them at her parents' house. Arjid repeats her parents' house in disbelief. Senri apologizes again and explains that she never thought she would need them, since the portal has not been used in centuries. Kayana rubs her forehead, looking used to this by now. Senri quickly tells everyone not to worry. It is only a 2-day carriage ride. She promises to leave first thing tomorrow morning and bring the tools back. Arjid asks if she truly does not mind. Senri says not at all, though she apologizes for making everyone wait. Kayana then suggests that instead of waiting around, they should all go with Senri to pick up the tools. She explains that Senri's mother is an excellent fortune teller and may be able to offer useful advice about what lies ahead. It would be a much better use of time than waiting here. Minachi says she can't disagree with that. Arjid asks Ivy what she wants to do. Ivy thinks that she would actually like to hear her fortune. But more importantly, she might have information about portals. Ivy decides she wants to meet Senri's mother and says she would love to go along. Arjid nods and agrees. That's what they shall do. To save the Realmweave Guardian, they need the wind sword from Menesmetlo as soon as possible. He announces that they will head for Senri's hometown tomorrow morning so that she may retrieve the tools for preparing the portal. He asks if there are any questions. Minachi and Stahl both say there are none. Minachi says she will begin preparing for the journey right away. Stahl tells Ivy they should head back to her chambers, reminding her that she has been overworking herself lately and should rest. Senri suddenly starts crying and apologizing, saying she failed to think about how tired Ivy must be. All she is doing is making things more difficult. Ivy looks startled and quickly reassures her that it is all right. She tells Senri that she should be thanking her instead. Then Ivy admits the truth. Even if she could use the portal right now, she does not think she would be ready. Because she is not brave enough. Senri looks surprised. Ivy explains that yesterday she activated something similar without thinking, and it ended up putting everyone in danger. That's why she is a little scared of using the portal. She tells Senri that she is grateful. Because thanks to this delay, she has more time to gather her courage. Stahl calls out that they should get going. Ivy tells Senri she will see her tomorrow and says goodnight for now. Then she tells Stahl she is coming. Senri watches her leave and realizes that Ivy is hesitating because she is afraid of using the portal. She thinks to herself that she can understand her point of view. Later that night, Ivy sits on the floor of her room with her luggage packed for tomorrow. She tells herself that everything is ready. It is still too early to sleep. So she decides to do some needlework. She thinks maybe she could make Senri a cute nightdress. Then she pauses and wonders if that would be too forward. But she admits to herself that once she starts thinking about sewing, she cannot stop. Then her thoughts drift between the portal and everything with Arya. Her life keeps getting weirder and weirder, portals that only people reborn from another world can see. It feels like too much to be a coincidence. Until now, she always thought her rebirth here was just some random twist of fate. But now she wonders what if souls from her old world are somehow important to the working of this world. A knock at the door makes her jump. Senri apologizes for visiting so late. Ivy is surprised to see her, but tells her it is fine and invites her in. Senri apologizes again and says she hopes she is not bothering her. But there is something she really wanted to talk about. Senri says she has an offer. She reminds Ivy that earlier she said she was scared someone might get hurt. Ivy nods. Senri asks what if someone else used the portal first and proved it was safe. Would Ivy feel better about using it then? Then Senri smiles. And says there is someone else here who can use portals too, and that person is her. Ivy freezes and asks what. Senri explains that when she introduced herself earlier, she did not give her full name. Her full name is Senri Kamioka. She takes Ivy's hands and tells her the truth. She can see portals too, just like Ivy can. Ivy is struck with immediate shock, asking if Senri can really see them. Ivy tells herself to hold on. She reflects on the fact that only those who have transmigrated should be able to see portals. She remembers that Senri mentioned her surname is Kamioka. With a sudden burst of energy, Ivy grabs Senri and asks if she perhaps also transmigrated from Japan. Senri is confused, asking what transmigrate means. Ivy realizes she made a mistake and panics. Senri laughs and apologizes, saying she is just an uneducated maid. However, she brightens up and explains that she knows a little about the place called Japan because that is where her grandparents are from. Senri explains that Japan is very, very far from where they are, with its own language and a different culture, calling it a mysterious country. Senri admits she has never been there, but she recounts the stories she was told about carriages that do not need horses and little rectangles for talking to people far away. To her, it sounds like a land full of magic. She mentions that her grandma told her these things when she was little and that her name is also Japanese. Ivy thinks to herself that if Senri knows about Japan, that must mean it really exists, whereas she used to think it was just a fairy tale. Senri asks Lady Ivy if she also came from Japan. Ivy admits that she did but pleads with Senri not to tell anyone. Senri gives Ivy her word. She also admits her grandparents told her not to talk about Japan with anyone who cannot see the portals. She wonders why she can see portals though she has never been outside this country. Maybe it is because of her grandparents. Ivy thinks that must be it. Her grandparents were Japanese people reborn into this world. She can see portals because she is of a transmigrant bloodline, so it seems Senri is in charge of portal maintenance specifically because she has ties to Ivy's old world. She finds this to be a bit of a shock and never thought she would run into others who know transmigrants. She wonders if this world is full of people who transmigrated like her. Senri then returns to her previous offer and explains that since she can see portals, she bets she can use them. She proposes that she activate the portal first and test it to make sure it is safe. Once she proves it is working fine, it will be Ivy's turn. But Ivy says she cannot ask her to do that for her. Senri grabs her hands and insists she can. In fact, she really wants to do it, for she says she feels bad for slowing Ivy down because the portal's repairs are delayed, and sees this test as an apology. Ivy argues that it could be dangerous and says she cannot expect Senri to take such a risk. But Senri says it is really fine, she will need that portal, so they should do it. Ivy tells Senri it is fine and that the portal is her own responsibility. Suddenly, Minachi enters the room with a tray, announcing that it is just her and she has brought Ivy's pre-bedtime tea. But then she freezes because the sight looks completely different to her. It looks like Senri is holding Ivy in a wrong way. She suddenly points her finger and shouts at her, demanding to know what she is doing to Lady Ivy. Ivy tells Minachi to calm down, but she grabs Senri physically away from her. Later Minachi mutters, "Unbelievable. She just does not understand young maids these days. Sneaking around secretly to visit Lady Ivy at night. Does she have no sense of decency at all?" Senri bawls and says she is sorry. Minachi then becomes more angry and says worse, she was groping the poor confused lady. Stall tells Minachi to stop projecting on her. Minachi begins punishing Senri, calling her a rotten maid, while Senri cries out. Ivy asks Minachi to let her go and tells her that she invited Senri to her room, she had something to give Senri anyway. Ivy rummages through her things and presents a gift, explaining she made it for Senri just like she did for Minachi and Stall. She identifies it as a bless-woven nightdress and presents it as a gesture of friendship. Senri is ecstatic, thanking Lady Ivy and asking if it is really okay for her to accept such a wonderful gift. She feels she does not deserve it after the trouble she caused. Ivy insists she take it. She then whispers to her that she based it on a nightdress she had in Japan. She hopes it does not look too outlandish on her. Senri's eyes start sparkling and she says Ivy got her curious and asks may she try it on right away. Ivy claps her hands excitedly and says of course, and tells Minachi and Stall, why do they not put on theirs too? They should show off their nightdresses. However, Minachi is already grabbing the poor maid's hair, saying, is she that thirsty for more punishment? She calls herself a maid. A maid should always be dressed properly in front of her mistress. A nightdress is not proper at all. Senri looks at her dumbfounded and asks, is it against the rule? But then Ivy blinks at her innocently, saying she really wanted to see Minachi wearing the dress, but she is sorry she forgot that they are all on duty. She then says to forgive her, she should have known better, looking all lost and wounded. Minachi does a complete 180 and suddenly shouts she should be the one asking for her forgiveness. It was her who spoke in error. She decides that since Ivy made the dresses in their honor, it is Ivy's right to see them wear them. She commands Stall to get changed into the nightdress as well. Stall sighs that she does not mind if it is Ivy's wish, though she finds Minachi to be a pain. Senri is amazed at how quickly Minachi about-faced, calling her a pro-maid. Minachi pinches Senri's cheeks and declares that anything for Lady Ivy is the rule. Stall agrees it is a good opportunity since they will be traveling together for a while. The girls sit in a circle on the floor, wearing their nightdresses. Minachi says she will set up with tea and cake so they should spend time getting to know each other, while Senri is enjoying cookies. Stall says nice, are they not? She had them sent over from her family estate. Senri remarks that having a tea party so late at night feels like a guilty pleasure. What if they wake up as big as houses? Stall says the carriage might collapse under their weight. Senri tells both of them to stop. Ivy thinks the scene is amazing and like something from paradise. She reflects that in her previous life, they would call this a pajama party. She admits she did not think this would happen since it was so spur of the moment. She swoons, thinking it is such bliss. Beautiful girls, dressed in PJs she made, a feast for the eyes. Senri says she has to say Lady Ivy to be beyond impressive. Senri asks how Ivy makes a beautiful nightdress like that in just one evening. She calls the design bold and unlike anything she has seen, telling Ivy she really can work miracles. She notes that Ivy is famous among the palace maids and mentions hearing about how she transformed Lady Hania's dress at the ball. She admits she wishes she had been there to see it. Stall asks Senri when she became employed as a maid there. She has been working at the palace for a long time but had never seen Senri before. Senri says she started about 6 months ago. She says Miss Kayana gave her the offer. Stall says since she started as the chief clerk's maid, she must be exceptional. Senri insists she is just an ordinary human, she was a wild child helping her parents out in the mountains, going to school and helping at home, and then that Miss Kayana simply got her the job. Senri is the granddaughter of transmigrated Japanese, a portal service person, and a relative of the chief palace clerk. As she laughs and claims she just goes with the flow and does not really have special traits to brag about. Ivy watches her in silence, thinking to herself that Senri might actually be the most unusual of them all. Minachi suddenly points out what has been bugging her since they met. Senri and she have overlapping roles in the group because they are both maids. Senri is startled by the remark, letting out a confused huh and says that they are not anything alike. She tells her to look at her ears. She is a Terra, is she not? Minachi is surprised that she noticed, but Senri asks who would not notice. Ivy asks what a Terra is. Minachi apologizes, explaining she forgot to mention that the Terra are a race of demi-humans. She explains that one can distinguish a Terra by the shape of their ears, their short height, and their young-looking faces. She adds that they have slightly better strength, reflexes, and endurance than humans, though they are generally pretty similar. Stahl adds that while the region of Lomestametlo is predominantly inhabited by humans, there are many other races in the world. There is dragonkin, mermaids, demons, and treefolk. She explains to Ivy that once they leave the capital, they may have the chance to meet people of other races. Ivy realizes she had no idea that Minachi was not human. This made her realize she is only beginning to discover the peculiarities of this world. Senri tells Lady Ivy she must be even more excited now for their trip, noting they will likely stop at an inn along the way. There might be lots of new things for her to see. Stahl suddenly pauses and says she is sorry to spoil her enthusiasm. She has some concerns about traveling so far with Lady Ivy in tow. Ivy asks what she is worried about. Stahl explains that it is Ivy's father, the previous head of House Noor. She recalls observing him at the ball and notes that his attitude toward Lady Ivy was fiercely aggressive. She confesses she would not put it past that man to attack Lady Ivy if it won him back his status. Minachi adds that naturally they will be guarding her closely, but traveling is inherently risky and they need to be extra vigilant because they will be more vulnerable to an attack while on the road. Stahl looks at Ivy and suggests it would be safer to avoid traveling right now, wishing Lady Ivy could fully cut her ties with House Noor. Stahl then apologizes, saying it was not her place to give an opinion on matters concerning Ivy's family. Ivy says it is okay and admits that she also wants to cut ties with her family. She then clenches the fabric of her dress and confesses that she fears for her little sister. Stahl asks, her sister? Thinking of the girl who attacked Lady Hania at the ball. Ivy admits that her sister's behavior was inexcusable and says she can see why they would judge her harshly. She then looks down and thinks to herself that the girl was not always like that. Ivy remembers a different side of Melia from the past. She recalls sitting alone in her room when a knock came at the door. Melia had sneaked food out of the kitchen for Ivy and told her to be quiet because their father would hit her if he found out she came to see Ivy. She then gave the food to her and told her she sneaked it out of the kitchen for her, and then apologized for ignoring her at lunchtime. Father yelled at her for talking to Ivy, saying Ivy is a servant now, and she was scared of him. She apologizes and says she will bring her more food tonight. Back. Then she was very kind to her, but gradually she stopped coming to see her. In retrospect, Melia must have also been desperately trying to survive in their family. It was imprinted on her that opposing their father would be met with punishment. Growing up in that hostile environment changed her, Ivy believes. Ivy thinks about the Melia she knew before everything happened, a sweet and very timid little girl. Stahl notes that Melia had no choice but to change to fit in with her family environment. Minachi asks if Ivy is thinking of getting her little sister out of that rotten house. Ivy does not answer and instead apologizes. She owes them so much already and she knows it is naive to try to save any of her relatives. But Minachi tells her, not at all, she does not have to apologize. If she wants to help her sister, then that is what they would do. Minachi, Senri, and Stahl offer their absolute and full support, vowing to always be on Ivy's side no matter what. The girls sit together on the rug in the middle of their tea party. Ivy cries softly and thanks her friends. Stahl then says that it is getting pretty late. Stahl turns to Lady Ivy and says she must be tired. She thinks it is time they excuse themselves and let her get some rest. But then she jolts at the menacing aura coming from Minachi, who says not so fast, grinning. She tells Stahl she was not planning to bail out of answering any questions, was she? Stahl asks what questions. She is not hiding anything. Minachi says she is sure about that. Then she asks how her romance with Master Rodan started. Senri looks shocked and says they both are a couple. Minachi giggles, saying that Stahl always manages to slip away when asked but declares she is not letting her off the hook this time. Senri joins in, begging Stahl to tell them everything. Stahl calls out to Lady Ivy for help. But Ivy blushes and admits she has been very curious about it too. Ivy reflects on her life being full of twists and turns but admits she never thought she would be able to laugh together with friends like this. She hopes their trip to Senri's hometown goes as planned. Ivy hopes that they all return safely to the palace. In the Noor mansion, a scraping sound echoes through the halls. The huge double doors slowly creak open, and a woman crawls on the floor on all fours, a huge spider clinging to her back. She looks up at the figure in a dark hood and says, "At last, you have come back to me, my beloved." "The child is cursed," he said, "she will bring misfortune for those around her." The village's soothsayer passed her verdict on her the very day she was born. She did not care. She might bring bad luck, but as long as she could be with her beloved, nothing else mattered to her. At the residence, the man with the hood greets the master of House Noor, or rather, former master, he should say. He remarks that it has been a while and asks if he will now tell him the reason for this invitation. What can he help him with this time? The master's face contorts with anger as he tells him not to feign ignorance. He already knows the reason. He needs magic. He needs magic for bless weaving right this minute. The king has ordered him to bless weave a garment. It is a matter of great urgency, and yet, maddeningly, he lacks sufficient magic for his spider to spin thread. He asks if he can supply him with magic. After all, he is a fey manservant. The man smiles and says he sees. The situation sounds stressful indeed. But what he does not understand is why he does not simply use the apprentice he left him with. The master looks toward the woman and scoffs at what he calls an apprentice. He reminds him that he sold her to him as a servant. To answer his question, he says he has been putting her to good use, of course. The man comments that he would naturally take advantage of her special ability, to attract fairies and steal their magic. By attaching his spider to her, he could extract magic aplenty whenever he needed. In the past, he never ran out. However, the master slams his hand against the table and screams that it is no longer the case. Lately, she has been giving him no magic at all. He bought her only 3 years ago. He paid a hefty sum for her, and she turns out to be defective. The man smiles and assures him she is not to blame. The reason is simple: the fairies are gone. Fairies are not an infinite resource, he says. If their magic is stolen, they die, and their numbers grow fewer and fewer. It would seem they have now become totally extinct. The master asks what he is supposed to do now. His title was given away to that wench. To get it back, he must fulfill the king's order, and he cannot do that without a large supply of magic. He says he does not care what means he uses to get it. The man smiles and says that in that case, he might have just the solution. As it happens, he has sensed the appearance of a powerful new fairy in this kingdom. After looking into it, he has concluded that this valuable fairy is in the vicinity of the new head of House Noor. If they capture this fairy, it would yield copious amounts of magic once more. Then he says, why stop there? They could capture the girl too. A servant who can bless weave would be of great use to them, would she not? The master bursts into laughter and says that is what he likes to hear. He fully approves of this plan. He asks him how he plans to lure them in. Does he have any ideas yet? The man replies that he does and tells the master to leave everything to him. He calmly sips his tea and says that once he gets the fairy, he will need her appearance to extract its power. If he does not mind, he would like him to call her here so he can see her. It has been such a long time since he last spoke to her. Outside the room, the woman with the spider on her back stiffens. She recognizes that voice. She can hear him. It's coming from behind that door, the most beautiful voice in the entire world. She has been waiting all this time. She knew he would come back for her. Like how, 10 years ago, he rescued her from a living hell, he is her savior. Children were throwing rocks at her, telling her to get lost. She has bad luck, a cursed girl. They do not want her in their village. She was born with a strange power. Her touch turns water cloudy. It withers plants. It must have been her fault that after she was born, crops began to fail in her village. Everyone accused her family of causing them hardship. And one day her parents fled the village. She was left behind. It was hard to survive. She was starving. She hesitantly approached a man and told him she hadn't eaten in days and if he could spare her some bread. However, his boot slams onto her head, forcing her down as he asks if she is dense. It was her fault they were in famine, and yet she dared to ask to be fed. She loses hope. She knows no one will help her. No one will ever love her. She is going to die alone. That is what she thinks until a soft voice asks if she is awake, wondering what kind of wretch would do this to a little girl. She looks up and sees him. With a gentle smile, he tells her that he lives in the forest near her village and asks if she would like to come to his house, where he can tend to her injuries. Meeting her master changed her life. He told her that he was a Feymancer. He had no idea what that meant. It didn't matter. He invited her to his house, healed her wounds, and gave her a hot meal. That was enough for him to earn her trust. That ended their talk late into the night. She told him about the prophecy, about the villager's fate. She told him about her strange power. According to him, she possessed a rare gift. She could interfere with the world of the fairies, water clouds when she touched them. Because she absorbed water fairies' magic. She has the makings of a Feymancer. Asked her if she would become his apprentice, promising to support her for as long as she needed. She had no reason to decline. Her family abandoned her. She was happy he wanted her to stay. As they spent more time together, he became her entire world. All she wanted was to be with him. Nothing else mattered to him. Through her training, she learned that her ability was to steal fairy magic, essentially killing them by depleting the power. It turns out her master was illegally capturing fairies to sell them. Then one day, he told her from now on, she would be working in this residence, as he needed to travel to a very different land to offer his services. And she would stay here at the residence for a while and her job would be to catch fairies. He told her he knew she would do this well, being his apprentice, and told her to work hard until he comes back for her. She knew he had sold her. It did not bother her. Nothing he did bothered her. In the end, all that matters is that he is back, just as he promised. She cannot wait to see him again. The door opens, and the master tells her that the Feymancer wants to see her on the double, so she should hurry up and come. She suddenly jumps into the former master's arms, the spider's tentacles piercing straight into his body. A soft smile spreads across her face as she says she has been waiting patiently for him, master. But then, his head drops to the ground. She freezes, staring in shock. That was not her master. Strange. She is certain she heard his voice. Then her wild eyes catch him, standing near the wall, smiling at her. At once, she rushes toward him. She says she has found him. She tells him how much she has missed him. Throwing herself into his arms, she holds him tightly, calling him her beloved. She is so happy he is hers now. They have finally become one. On the other side, in the carriage, Senri lets out a yawn. Arjid notices and asks what is the matter. Did she not get enough sleep? Senri apologizes for her rudeness and admits she stayed up late, chatting with Lady Ivy, Stall, and Minachi. Minachi smacks her on the head and reminds her that a maid does not yawn in front of His Highness. Arjid turns to Ivy and asks if they were all up late talking. He asks if she is not tired this morning. Ivy smiles softly and says not at all. She slept well until it was time to move. He tells her that is good, since it is going to be a long ride, and tells her to feel free to take a nap if she wants. That morning, after their lovely tea party, they had gotten into the carriage as planned and departed for Senri's hometown. Senri needed to retrieve some kind of key for the portal repairs, and she also wanted to seek advice from Senri's mother, a fortune teller. Now that Ivy thinks of it, Senri's mother is descended from a Japanese transmigrant too. She wonders what she is like. Is she similar to Senri? Suddenly, Ivy freezes. She turns sharply toward the window. Even Minachi notices and asks if something is wrong. But Ivy's face has gone pale as she stares outside. What is going on? She has this weird feeling. It's like something big and ominous is suddenly stirring her, which is nauseating. Her spider suddenly becomes agitated too. Arjid grows tense and tells everyone to look outside. What in the world? The forest to the west is covered in miasma. Arjid says this is bad news. That is the direction of the Noor residence. He quickly steps out of the carriage and tells Stall that this is an emergency. Something has happened at the mansion. He orders him to mobilize the royal knights. However, the knights step in front of His Highness and urge him to return at once, warning that he is in danger if he remains there. Ivy stands frozen in unease. What could possibly have happened there? There is so much miasma. Is it really coming from her home? That means her sister is there. An exposure to miasma might kill her. Arjid orders the knights to ready a horse for him. An incident of this scale at the mansion would be a national emergency. He says he will ride there and investigate in person. Then he turns to Ivy and tells her to come with him. He can see she is worried sick. He tells her to do what she wants. Wherever she goes, he will be at her side. He reaches out his hand. Ivy takes it and quickly climbs onto the horse behind him, thinking that if something bad has happened, she has to check on her sister. She only hopes her sister is okay. Ivy's family home was a house of horrors. Her father mistreated her and worked her to the bone. Every day she thought it might be the last, but she does have good memories from there thanks to her little sister. They charge toward the western forest at full speed on horseback. They will be arriving shortly. Arjid says there is no way to know what could be waiting at the residence. It would be wise to prepare for the worst. Ivy's thoughts are on her sister, Melia. Even though they lived under the same roof, they had not seen each other in several years. Maybe Melia has forgotten all about her, disgusted with her inability to bless Weave. But even so, Ivy has to save her. How could she not care about her only sister? As they ride deeper into the forest near the estate, Arjid says this miasma is troubling. It is growing denser by the minute. From the look of it, the situation may be far worse than he first reckoned. Ivy asks him how much worse. He replies that he has seen miasma this powerful before. It was when they fought the former queen's curse. This miasma is the sign of an enraged monster. Ivy asks why a monster would be there. Arjid says he fears it is the resident monster of House Nur. Her father's spider. A divine beast. As divine beasts, spiders are blessed and obedient, but they must not forget that they are originally monsters. Something must have happened to make her father's spider go berserk. This miasma is not protection. It is coming from a maddened monster. He has no doubt it is her father's spider. Ivy thinks back, her father's spider is far larger than hers and has inherited the power of the founder's spider Arya. If it has truly lost control, it would threaten not only the residents, but possibly the entire kingdom. Arjid says that in any case, the miasma alone is enough to cause disaster. If a divine beast is the source of it, then as the partner king, he is obligated to take action. They must do what they can to contain the damage. Ivy asks him if he intends to fight the monster. She tells him that is madness. He replies that it is. A divine beast is vastly stronger than even the former queen's curse. Which is why, if they wish to stand a chance, they will need allies. On the other side, the king is at his study table when Hania enters, apologizing for interrupting his work, but says two people wish to speak with him. She gestures toward Rodney and Kayana. The king quickly stands and walks toward them, thanking them for coming. He says he was not aware Rodney was in the capital. He asks if he is here on business. Rodney replies yes, Lady Kayana asked him to come. Kayana smiles and says it has been so long since she got to push him around, after all. The king says he believes Rodney has not seen Hania in a while either. Hania replies that is true. The last time she saw him was when he came to visit her brother. Then she looks at him and says she heard he discovered the Maiden of the Needle. It was him who found Lady Ivy, was it not? She says he is clearly a man of excellent judgment. Rodney says that is more praise than he deserves. But the best judge of character must be His Majesty Amnard, for falling in love with her at first sight. Hania becomes flustered and snaps at him. The king clears his throat and turns to Kayana, asking what brings her here today. It is rare for her to seek him out. He asks if there is some kind of emergency. Kayana tells him his intuition is correct. She says she noticed the tree fairies whispering anxiously and felt an oppressive heaviness in the air. Alarmed, she asked the tree fairies what was wrong. They replied in unison, a monster at the Nur residence. The fairies are unusually restless. Something truly terrifying must be happening. She thought she should tell him without delay. Just then, the knights rush in and apologize for the intrusion, saying there is an emergency. An enormous cloud of miasma has been spotted west of the capital. It is presumed to be coming from the Nur estate. His Highness Arjid and Lady Ivy have already gone ahead to investigate. With His Majesty's permission, they wish to send troops to the estate at once. The king thinks quickly. Miasma rising from the estate. The fairies speaking of a monster. He mutters that it might be the spider. It may have gone berserk. If his guess is correct, the army alone will be no match for it. He fears for his son and quickly orders the knights to ready a horse for him. However, Kiana suddenly stops him, telling him not to be so hasty. As king, he should not put himself in danger. She asks him to allow her to go in his stead. He looks shocked and asks her. He objects. How can a palace clerk help on the battlefield? Kiana laughs and says combat is not her strength. Magic, however, is her element. She can support the fighters from a safe distance, and she promises she will be useful. Besides, she promised Lady Ivy she would help her if she ever needed it. It seems the chance to fulfill that promise has come sooner than expected. On the other side, Ivy and Arjid finally arrive at the Noor estate. Ivy looks up and can barely believe her eyes. The whole place is swallowed in thick miasma. She says it is horrifying. The sight fills her with dread. Arjid replies that her fear is justified. This is no ordinary miasma. It is like poisonous fog. He warns her not to take deep breaths. Even with the Guardian's protection, they will not escape harm if they remain in it too long. Their time is limited. A terrifying monster may be waiting in that house. Even so, Ivy has to find her sister. Arjid tells her to hold on just a little longer. He promises he will get her out safely. Inside the mansion, Melia wakes up and rubs her eyes. She finds herself in the parlor. She wonders why she is here. She does not remember coming here. What she does remember is her father telling her not to leave her room because he had an important guest. She had been in her room when suddenly she felt like she could not breathe. And then what happened after that? Why can she not remember? She turns her head and sees a cloaked figure lying on the floor without a head. She lets out a scream. What in the world? This is the man who came to see father. Why is his head gone? What happened here? Suddenly, she feels something enormous move behind her. A giant spider. Its voice echoes. It asks why it still hungers for magic. It says it thought it had saved her. It thought they had finally become one. But she still craves magic. She must nourish herself with more magic power. She must feed. Melia cries out, asking what this monster is doing in their house. The monster turns toward her and asks her to let it devour her magic. She freezes. Is she going to die here? She begs for somebody to help her. Her father. Her mother. She squeezes her eyes shut, tears falling. She wants someone to save her. And then she thinks of her sister. Her sister Ivy was always great at everything. She made her a flower crown which was very cute. Melia asked her in awe if she made it. Ivy replied it was fairly easy. Melia looked at it with awe and said that was amazing, she's really good at this. She tried to make one too, but this is the best she could do. She showed her shabby one. Ivy smiled and told her to her, it looked very nice, but Melia complained it wasn't as nice as her. Ivy laughed and said if she liked her better, then they should trade. She will take hers and she can have her instead. Ivy admitted she would love to have something Melia made with her own hands. Her big sister was kind and strong. She even defended her from mother and father when they were angry that she was so clumsy. She owed her a lot, so when things changed at her house, she decided it was her turn to protect her. At least she tried. Her sister looked at her with dull eyes and apologized, knowing she has been pinching food from the dining hall, hasn't she? She felt bad that she is stealing because of her. But Melia had told her not to feel bad. With what's being done to her, she really shouldn't worry about that. She admitted she was scared of being caught at first, but nobody noticed. She added with a wink maybe she has a gift for thievery. Ivy said in here she told her not to worry about it. Melia then shows her a dress and says, more importantly, she wanted to ask her about this dress. Is it true that she made it? She heard her father ordered her to see it, but she has never made clothes before. Ivy smiles and replies, she did make it. It is just a simple dress. She wasn't given many materials. Melia looks at it in awe and says, it is not simple. It is the cutest dress she has ever seen. She wants one too and asks her to please make one for her. But Ivy softly says she is sorry. She doesn't have anything to make a dress out of. But she can make something else for her. She made a friendship bracelet with spider silk. Melia watched it with admiration. It was so pretty. She had never seen anything like this before. Her sister smiled and told her it is a type of bread. She can make a wish. When she ties it around her wrist, it is supposed to come true. And the bracelet. She told her this is the best she can make for her right now. But if she is ever free again, she can make a dress for her. It's a promise. Malia was really excited. She couldn't wait to try on a dress her sister made. But sadly that little promise they made years back turned out to be impossible. Her father found out she disobeyed him and had been secretly visiting. She had to endure a beating all night long. Her apologies fell on deaf ears. Her father screamed at her that he hoped she had learned her lesson. She will become the head of House Nur one day and she is not to ever approach that walking disgrace again. As she lay there in overwhelming pain, she realized that if she did not cut all ties with Ivy, father would kill her too. After that night, she was careful to stay far away from her sister's room. She abandoned her loving sister like a coward. After that, she could never be a nice girl again. She no longer cared about upsetting other people because there was nobody left who cared about her. She stopped caring about anything really. She prioritized herself over others, hurting the feelings of many people. In her selfishness, she even stole a lady's dress. She was upset that that lady had a beautiful dress like that, but she never got an opportunity to wear it, a dress made by her sister. It turns out she cannot live with no concerns for others without fate catching up to her. As the big monster opens her mouth, ready to devour her, she can only watch with wide eyes, knowing this is her punishment for hurting people, for betraying her sister. She has brought this upon herself. If she knew it would come to this, she would have stood by Ivy no matter what. Her sister was the person she loved the most in the world. And she is sorry to her for everything. Meanwhile, Ivy stands there, lost in thought. Arjun asks her if something is wrong. She hesitates, then says no, she thinks she heard her sister's voice. He asks if she did. Maybe she has already escaped from the house. Should they search around the grounds? But Ivy shakes her head and says no. The voice was not coming from outside. She heard it inside her head. Somehow, she feels as though Melia is right next to her, like there is an invisible thread connecting them. Suddenly, a horse comes rushing toward them. Stahl is on it, calling out and asking Ivy if she is unharmed. Minachi is beside her. Arjun says they are back. Stahl apologizes to Ivy for leaving her unguarded. She explains that she had to return to the palace to request reinforcements. In her hurry to rejoin her, she came back right away with only her subordinates. Arjun asks where the others are. Has something happened? Stahl hesitates and says yes. She glances back at the knights collapsed against the trees, barely conscious. She says she was not prepared for the miasma to be this dense. Her men do not have guardian fairies. They can barely move their limbs. Ivy stares at them in shock. How terrible. If this miasma spreads any further, the whole country could end up like this. Arjun says this is concerning. It is imperative that they stop the source of the miasma. But first, Stahl should order her men to withdraw. Ivy looks at Stahl and Minachi and asks if they are not affected by the miasma. She says she does not want them forcing themselves and suffering for her sake. But both of them tell her not to worry. Stahl explains that her flower crown is protecting her with fairy magic. Minachi winks and says Terra people are a sturdy race. A little miasma will not hurt her. Arjun says they are reliable as always. Ivy is in safe hands. But what worries him is that if even the royal knights cannot endure the miasma, then only the four of them can enter the house. Stahl says it would seem unwise for them to go in alone. Minachi mutters especially if there is some terrifying monster inside. Arjun says Amnart has already been informed about the situation, he must be assembling a team to help them. But they can hardly afford to wait while her sister is trapped inside that house. He says this is what they will do. He will go in first and look around. They need to rescue her sister before dealing with the monster. The rest of them will wait outside. But Ivy quickly grabs his arm and tells him he must not. She admits she is worried about Melia. But she cannot sacrifice them for her sake. She tells them she wants them all to stay behind. She will go into the house herself. Immediately, everyone protests. How can she even suggest that? But Ivy tells them that as the head of this house, she has to take responsibility. This disaster was brought on by her own flesh and blood, the Nur family. Saving her sister is her responsibility alone. To involve outsiders and put them in danger for her sake, she cannot allow that. Just then, Kayana arrives with Hania. Kayana immediately tells Ivy she is being excessively self-conscious. Hania apologizes for not making it sooner. She says she heard there was an incident at her house and hurried over to offer help. However, Stahl immediately objects. With all due respect, this is no place for a palace clerk. It is extremely dangerous for her to be here. Kayana should return to the palace at once. But Arjid cuts her off and smiles, saying there is no better reinforcement than Kayana. Kayana smiles and turns to Ivy. She asks Ivy to forgive this old woman for the unsolicited advice. But her decision to go in alone is a trifle reckless. Her sense of responsibility is commendable. Foolhardiness is not a trait to be encouraged. Right now, Ivy has no means to resolve this situation by herself. Kayana tells her to look around. Everyone here came because they want to help her. Hania steps forward and tells Ivy she should rely on them when she is in trouble. She is not alone. Ivy's eyes fill with tears. She thanks them. Hania takes her hand and says now that she has accepted their help, they must act without delay. They do not have time to waste. They should work together. Then Kayana says she has a plan. She says first they should go over the task at hand. Their two highest priority objectives are rescuing Lady Ivy's sister and clearing the miasma. The first cannot be achieved without going into the manor house, where a spider monster likely lies in wait. They cannot rule it out that it will attack. She is bound to her wheelchair, so she cannot accompany them into the house. However, she should be able to help with the miasma. Ivy looks shocked and murmurs she can help with clearing the miasma. Stahl quickly says dispelling miasma is no easy feat, it is done by dozens of skilled magicians expending all of their magic power. Is she saying she can do it all by herself? She smiles and replies, indeed she can. Her magic is still more than a match for the young djinns. She might throw out her back if she's not careful, though. Ivy realizes Ms. Kiana came all the way here specifically for this, but this miasma is so thick, how is she going to clear all of it away? She tells Ivy she can see the uncertainty in her eyes, so she will explain. Has she ever heard of the people known as tree folk? Meenashir says she has. They are a rare race descended from tree fairies. They put down roots in their place of birth, becoming literally bound to their home woodland for the entire life. But there have been so few sightings of tree folk that they are still considered a very mysterious people. Kiana says mysterious then she will tell them something they did not know about them. The tree folk can use purifying magic. Purifying magic harnesses the tree fairy's healing power to banish evil energy. In fact, she herself is well versed in this type of magic. They are shocked. Is she implying she is one of the tree folk? She smiles and says she is indeed. The reason she cannot walk is that half-trees, they are immobile. Stahl says, hold on, isn't tree folk supposed to be bound to their birthplace? She claps her hands together and beams. She is a little unusual for her race. It was her dream to work at the palace, so she left her home and laboriously limped her way there to knock on their door. Thankfully, she found employment as a clerk. She has been serving in this role for over 100 years now. All of them look completely dumbfounded. 100 years? She smiles and says they are a long-lived race. She is still quite a sapling, really. She then says, well, that is enough about her. What matters is that she can dispel the miasma with her purifying magic. However, as long as its source, the spider, remains alive, it will keep exuding more miasma. She needs them to go in, find Lady Ivy's sister, and slay the spider monster while they are there. Do they feel up to the task? They all answer in unison, saying yes. Kayana tells them she will leave the rest to them, then. And now, she will begin the purification ritual. She admits her service at the palace has been long, and lately she has been considering retirement. But it seems she can still be of some use. Arjid watches in surprise, pointing out the sparkling light spreading all around them. Ivy realizes she can breathe easily again. Then Minachi points out that Miss Kayana is transforming. No way. Could this be a sacred tree's transformation? Ivy asks Arjid if Kayana is turning into a sacred tree. Arjid says he thinks so. He has never seen it himself, but he has heard that when tree folk release all of their magic, they return to their original fairy form. So this is Miss Kayana's true form. Kayana raises a branch high and chants, O branch from the sacred tree of the gods, cast your blessings upon this land. At once, light spreads across the entire mansion grounds. Ivy looks around in shock. The mist is clearing. And with it, the miasma begins to vanish. Kayana says she will conjure a magical barrier to make sure the monster cannot escape. Then she tells Lady Ivy to go now and get her sister to safety. Ivy looks at her, her eyes full of gratitude, and thanks her sincerely. Arjid says they should enter the manor at once. He asks Ivy if she knows where her sister might be. Ivy says she can feel her. But her presence is fading. It is getting weaker. She is afraid something may already have happened to her. Suddenly Ivy moves forward, she says she knows where she is. They should come this way. They will enter through the back door. She can sense Melia on that side of the house. As they enter through the back door, the inside of the manor is in ruins. The halls are wrecked. Minachi looks around and says it feels strange being inside the manor where Ivy grew up. And even stranger considering the state it is in. She points at the deep claw marks carved all over the walls and asks if they think the spider did all this. Arjid says presumably. He imagines its size increased along with its magic. It seems the creature has been tearing this place apart. And it is still hiding here somewhere. He tells everyone to stay alert. Meanwhile, Ivy thinks she never imagined she would return to this house so soon. She only moved out a few months ago. But it feels like an eternity separates her from the Ivy who once lived here. Her father's words echo in her mind. Worthless. Talentless piece of trash. Her body stiffens. Arjid is at her side in seconds, asking what is wrong. Is she alright? She quietly says yes. She is fine. But Arjid looks at her with concern and says she does not need to pretend. Being here must be bringing back terrible memories. It would be fine for her to wait outside. They will find her sister. But Ivy immediately says no. She is staying. She is the head of this family now. The past does not matter. She will not run from her own house. Arjid nods and says very well. He respects that, but he tells her not to push herself too far. Hania looks around and says this house is enormous. They have passed countless rooms and they haven't seen a single sign that anyone else is here. Searching every corner would take a long time, putting them at increased risk. Ivy realizes she is right. She has been leading them to where she can sense Melia. But her sister's presence is getting weaker. They need to hurry. Suddenly, Minachi brightens and says she has an idea. Why not call for Ivy's sister as loudly as they can? If she hears them, she might answer. And if the spider hears them too, so what? They have to fight it anyway. If they cannot find someone, make that person find them. Then Minachi cups her hands and shouts at the top of her lungs, asking where Melia is. In the next second, a giant spider's leg shoots out, wrapping around her waist, and lifting her into the air. Minachi stares blankly for a second. Then screams that it is pulling her. Ivy freezes in horror, that is her father's spider. It is horrifying. But then she senses something. Her thoughts are cut off by a scream by Minachi, who is crying that it wants to eat her. Stahl reacts instantly and slashes the spider's leg, forcing it to let go. Minachi drops to the ground and thanks Stahl for saving her. Stahl tells her that it better be the last reckless thing she does. They still have not found Ivy's sister. And all Minachi managed to do was lure the monster straight to them. Minachi tearfully apologizes. Stahl says it does not matter now. They have to kill it first. But Ivy suddenly tells them no. What she senses from the monster, it is her sister. Her sister is inside it. Arjid goes still and says it absorbed her. Monsters consume magic to grow stronger. But this one is greedier than most. It devours people whole to absorb all their magic. He asks Ivy if she can still feel her sister's presence. Ivy says yes. Arjid says then there is still time. The beast has not fully absorbed her yet. They can still save her. He orders everyone to attack at once, cut open its abdomen. Her sister should be inside. But he can attack. Arjid's weapon breaks on it. He stares at it in shock. It damaged his sword. Ivy realizes what it is. Arjid doesn't understand what happened and asks if the creature used magic. But Ivy says no. That is not magic. It is blessed weaving. The spider's body is covered in blessed woven threads. Stahl appears nervous and calls out to Arjid, saying their hands are tied, the monster is impervious to their attacks. Hania suggests if weapons cannot hurt it, then they should use magic, but before she can cast, the monster strikes. A sharp limb pierces her side and throws her into the wall. Ivy screams her name before rushing to her side. She quickly holds her and calls out to her. Hania can only let out a groan of pain. She realizes this is bad. At this rate, Hania and the others will be defeated. What can she do? Then she remembers. There is someone who can help. She quickly tells everyone she has an idea. Her dark fairy, he can cut through blessed woven threads. She tells Arjid he unraveled his blessed woven clothes before. Arjid realizes it too and says that is right. Can she summon him again? Ivy says yes. At least, she will try. This is her responsibility as head of the house. She raises her voice and calls out to the Fairy of Darkness, begging him to lend her his power. She cannot fight but she can help. Then the spider speaks. Oh really? You believe someone like you can do anything to oppose me? She stiffens completely, her eyes turning wide with disbelief. The spider continues, that is a big claim to make. Ivy thinks in shock, it is speaking in her father's voice. The monster says, you simply do not know your place. Do you? You had Rodney whisk you away, you weaseled into the royal family, you even stole my title as head of this noble house. You're a pathetic failure, yet you have no shame. She stands there in shock. Why is she hearing her father? He says, you're an empty husk of a person. How desperate you must be to help someone just so that you would feel needed. But you will fail. Look, you couldn't even protect this woman who fought for you. Ivy sits there completely still. Arjid shouts at her, telling her not to listen. It is trying to break her. It wants to crush her spirit. Hania forces herself up and smiles weakly at Ivy. She tells her not to be fooled. The truth cannot be changed by cruel words. And the truth is, Ivy is not a failure. They have all been saved by her, again and again. Ivy thinks back. All her life, she was told those words. She believed them. She never fought back. She stopped thinking for herself. Back then, there was no way out. But things are different now. She meets his gaze without backing down and tells him she is Ivy Noor, the head of this house. She tells it she is not that powerless girl anymore. Those days are over. Then she calls upon her dark fairy. She raises her voice and asks him to cut through this monster's blasphemy. The dark fairy appears, his tiny sword in hand. At the very same moment, Arjid raises his voice and shouts that this is their chance. Everyone moves at once. With the fairy's blade cutting through the blessed woven threads protecting its body, Arjid and the others strike together and cut the abdomen open. Ivy doesn't wait and rushes inside. There, she finds Melia, unconscious. Ivy drops to her knees beside her and pulls her into her arms, calling out her name. And that concludes the video today. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you want another part. And thank you God for another day.